Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one and all to the first ever Ringside General live watch along as Connor Bedard and the bottom-feeding Chicago Blackhawks face off against the rightful 2023 Calder Trophy winner Brock Faber and the Minnesota Wild. And I say that in a tongue-in-cheek way. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we're going through the lines. But the Minnesota Wild are currently 10th in the NHL. They started off much better. They're starting to come back to earth a little bit, but they are a certain playoff team. And what that means is two things. First of all, they expect to win this matchup. And second of all, the Blackhawks always play better when they're up against a team that expects to win. So look for the Blackhawks to put up a really good effort tonight. We'll be diving into all of the action with some real-time analysis, a lot of reactions, plenty of hockey talk, a few fun non-hockey related competitive intermission games to interact more directly with everybody here. We're overall going to have a great time. Thank you so much for choosing to join me in this Sunday afternoon. The fact that you guys joined me instead of watching a certain other sport right now tells me all you need to know. You are exactly the type of people who I want to be catering to. So your feedback is extremely valuable. And frankly, it's not like you had anything better to do on this fine Sunday evening. It's not like any more important sporting event is happening right now that would possibly take your attention away from the second worst team in the NHL facing off against the most boring Central Division opponent in the Minnesota Wild. I mean, hockey over football forever. If you want, we can talk about football a little bit later as well. But before we go any further, I'd like to first of all thank everyone for joining here. I know Saquon is goated. I saw that long touchdown in the first drive for the Eagles, and I can't believe what must be going through the Giants' heads right now. It's unbelievable that Saquon left the Giants and immediately became a superstar again. I mean, he's back to rookie form. But anyways, you're right, Divvy. Let's focus on hockey for now. Before we go any further, I want to cover some bookkeeping things. First of all, please understand, you can probably tell already, my persona is a little bit different than in my YouTube videos. My YouTube videos are extremely scripted. I spend usually 6 to 7 hours just scripting and recording and re-recording and editing. And you guys should see the behind the scenes for my YouTube videos. I edit to an extreme degree, even audio. I always cut out anytime I stutter. It's cut out of the final product. This is a little bit different. And considering that this is my first ever live stream, I've only been making content in general for roughly 3 months. I know I took a break in the middle, so I'm rusty even on the YouTube stuff, but I'm a pretty new content creator. Now, some of you may be wondering why I announced this live stream so late. I mean, I announced it last night. And you're probably wondering that even more if you didn't watch the end of last video. And I don't blame you if you didn't. It was a long 28-minute video. But the reason is because that's exactly when I knew I'd be free for a live stream. I did not know any further in advance. And in the future, just so you know, I will announce these live streams as far in advance as I possibly can. But a lot of times they will be just like this. They'll be announced last minute, and I'll be expecting 6 to 7 viewers, and I'll grow the channel slowly. That's part of the fun for me. But live streaming is an entirely different world than making YouTube content, and one that I couldn't possibly learn in all of a day. So please forgive me for some lack of professionalism, and if this stream is rough around the edges at certain points. I expect delays, I expect lags, I expect technical difficulties. The overlays and transitions in this live stream are not going to be as professional as other streamers, and they won't be the same as they'll be when I stream for more time. I apologize for that, and I appreciate all of your support along the way. Now, before we break down the lines, I want to cover some breaking news. Now, this is not as drastic as yesterday's breaking news, but it is still breaking either way. The Blackhawks have just called up Landon Slaggard from the AHL. Now, Divya already mentioned Slaggard, but let me talk a little bit about the relevance that Slaggard's going to have to this team moving forward. Slaggard is a 22-year-old rookie who's tallied 25 points in 39 AHL games for the Ice Hogs last season. He had 4 points in 16 NHL games. Or I shouldn't say he's a rookie, he's a prospect. He already played in 16 NHL games with the Blackhawks last season and had a full college career over in Notre Dame before that. He had 4 points in those 16 games last season. And for those of you who haven't completely washed away the memory of last year, first of all, I respect you. But second of all, you'll remember that his stats didn't really do him justice. He was playing with Joey Anderson and Jason Dickinson for the majority of the line, and he was in a strong checking role. that role was not really meant to produce points, and he didn't produce a lot of points in the process. He only had 4 points. But overall, he looked extremely solid, and I thought he had a really good chance to make the NHL out of camp this season. Of course, that did not end up happening, and in fact, from the AHL squad, Kevin Korchinski, Frank Nazar, and even Colton Dach ended up seeing NHL time this season before Landon Slaggard did. But regardless, he's a solid bottom 6 role player. I don't expect him to play with Connor Bedard and to put up some massive number of points, but that bottom 6 role is an extremely important one, especially if he remains on this team when the Blackhawks are competitive. He's not going to be in the lineup tonight, so we won't see him against the Wild, but he will be there in the upcoming 3-game road trip. So keep an eye out for number 84 in the bottom 6 as the youth movement continues. And yes, I'm trying to say, unlike Luke Richardson's best attempts, Joey Anderson is not a first-line forward. In fact, he's in the AHL right now, and he's probably going to stay there for the considerable future. But in any case, let's take this opportunity as I pull up OBS like the unprofessional streamer that I am. I'll go to the watch-along little screen that I have here, and I'm going to pull up the Minnesota Wild lines. So let's take this opportunity to just get situated in this live stream a little bit. Thank you once again for joining me. And let's take a look at the lines from the perspective of the Minnesota Wild. Let me actually drag this all the way to the top so nothing is cut off. So the Minnesota Wild's first line has MVP candidate Kirill Kaprizov playing alongside Joel Eriksson-Ek and Matt Zuccarello. It's a veteran line and a very experienced line, and that line's been together for several games now. Now, the Minnesota Wild are playing in the second half of a back-to-back. The reason that's important is because they had a really tough game against the Calgary Flames. And I'll cover the Calder next to Faber in a second. But they had a really difficult game yesterday against the Calgary Flames. They were down 5-2. They scored 2 late goals in the last 5 minutes of that game. Their comeback came just short, so they should be a little bit exhausted. But that first line is going to be a problem for whoever Anders Sorensen chooses to line up against them. Of course, the Blackhawks have last change in this game because they are playing at home, but that first line is going to be a problem. The second line has 2 of the most impactful young players in the entire NHL. You have Marco Rossi, whose trade value has escalated in a huge way over the past 2 seasons. I mean, last year, he was in trade conversations. A lot of Blackhawks fans wanted to see the Blackhawks trading for Marco Rossi. All I'm going to say now is this season, he looks like a true top liner. He's playing on the second line just because of the depth and the star power that the Minnesota Wild have, and just to spread around the magic a little bit. Both Marco Rossi and Matthew Boldy are in the top 4 in point production on the Minnesota Wild. They're both bona fide first-line caliber players. Matthew Boldy is arguably the most impactful and consistent player on the Minnesota Wild from that Kirby Dach draft. And the reason I say that is because the Kirby Dach draft had a clear-cut top 2. You had Alexis Lafreniere and Kaapo Kakko. I would argue that Matthew Boldy is better than both of those players. Alexis Lafreniere had some spectacular moments last season. He had a very good playoff run, but overall, I'd say Matthew Boldy's been better than him over the past 2 seasons. You also have Habs fans who want to prop up Cole Caulfield for being an elite goal scorer, and credit to him, the Canadians look phenomenal this season, and he's a huge reason for that. I would argue that Matthew Boldy, as an all-around 200-foot, 2-way power forward, is more impactful. The third line features baby Foligno, Marcus Foligno, wearing the same number as his older brother, the captain for the Chicago Blackhawks, alongside Frederick Goudreau and Ryan Hartman, former Blackhawks legend. And the fourth line is a true contender fourth line. A lot of grindy play, defensive play from Jacob Lauko and Yakov Trenin especially, but also Husnedinov centering that line. Then we get to the blue line, and the first line has Jacob Middleton alongside who should have been the Calder Trophy winner last season, Brock Faber, because of course we all know that plus minus is the only thing that matters. Now, you may be thinking that I put a Calder overlay over Brock Faber because he deserved to win the Calder, but the reason is I want any Minnesota Wild fans who may be watching this stream or who may be watching this in recording to know that little picture of the Calder Trophy next to Brock Faber is the only Calder Trophy that Brock Faber is ever going to win. I want to get that point across, and I want to make sure every Minnesota Wild fan knows this. Plus, minus or not, Brock Faber is never going to win the Calder Trophy And Connor Bedard is. And the reason is because minus 44 or not, Connor Bedard is one of the most exciting young players in the NHL, and nobody cares about your little two-way defenseman. So enjoy that little concession trophy, that little compensation, that little participation trophy, because look, I do acknowledge that Brock Faber was a rookie last season. That's about as close he's going to get to the Calder. He was eligible for the Calder because he was a rookie, and that little overlay is a sign that that's basically a participation trophy. That's all Brock Faber's going to get. In all seriousness, though, the Minnesota Wild have a very talented blue line. And Jacob Middleton and Brock Faber are both solid players, both with good plus minuses, by the way, and are bookends on a very good playoff team. And the rest of the blue line is good as well. I want to get through this a little quicker because we're coming to the beginning of the game. So let me skip over to the goaltending. Marc-Andre Fleury, former Vezina Trophy winning goaltender, former Chicago Blackhawks goaltender, when Stan Bowman decided to go back on his promise at a rebuild and decided to trade for the reigning Vezina winning goaltender instead. He had a good stint in Chicago. It seems like every single time Fleury faces against Bedard, he usually gets the better of him. Yes, he is a Blackhawks legend, Divi. That's absolutely true. I respect Fleury, one of the most unbelievable characters in the NHL. Former first overall pick, former three-time Stanley Cup winner. He will not be playing. This is going to be Philip Gustafsson's game. And just so you know, and let me just pull this up quickly. The Minnesota Wild also have one of the best young goaltenders in the NHL. The problem is that Jesper Wallstedt is out due to injury. So you probably are going to see him play more next season because this is Marc-Andre Fleury's last season over in Minnesota. He's retiring after the season. So Jesper Wallstedt is probably going to have a much bigger role when Fleury is out. But for now, he is injured and we're not going to have the chance to see him. Philip Gustafsson is going to be in the net for this game. Now moving over to the Chicago Blackhawks lines. Just give me 1 second to figure this out. Okay. Let's drag this to the top. There we go. So the Blackhawks' first line has stayed in place. Frank Nazar is on the wing with Tyler Bertuzzi, and they're both centering Connor Bedard. Now that Calder Trophy is different than the Calder Trophy that was next to Brock Faber before, because that is a sign that Connor Bedard actually won the Calder Trophy last season. I'm not going to push this too far. Of course, that was a nice little rivalry. The only rivalry that Faber's ever going to have with Bedard is that they're both going for the same trophy. Bedard ended up winning it, and I just thought we would have some fun with it. Tyler Bertuzzi's arguably been the best player, the most consistent player under Anders Sorensen. And ever since Nazar's been on that line, they've been spectacular together. Now, Bedard and Bertuzzi have been together for the majority of Sorensen's reign, and Sorensen really likes having a speedy winger alongside those two. Frank Nazar being that speedy winger over a guy like, for example, Ilya Mikheyev, who's currently on the second line, is a pretty interesting touch. Not only because Nazar is projected to be a center in the future and now he's playing on the wing. We can have the Nazar discussion a little bit later in the live stream, but also because Nazar has much more of a scoring touch than Mikheyev has. And what that does is it frees up the second line to have much more of an identity as well. You have Jason Dickinson, Selke caliber second line center, one of the best defensive players in the entire NHL, one of the most underrated overall players. He's not been as good defensively under Sorensen as he was under Richardson, but that's more an indication of how spectacular he was under Richardson. He's still an extremely solid defensive center, one of the only guys in the entire lineup who can somewhat win faceoffs, even though he's having a down season on that front as well. But he's centering the second line with Teuvo Teravainen, who we can talk about some of the free agent signings a little bit later in this stream. But Teuvo Teravainen was signed to be a two-way player, and he's able to take much more of a true two-way role alongside Jason Dickinson and Ilya Mikheyev. Sorensen loves having speed on every line. Now, you could look up and down the lineup, and you can kind of identify who those speed players are. You have Nazar on the first line with Bertuzzi, who's pretty slow, and Connor Bedard, whose speed, straight line speed, is certainly not Bedard's strength. So you have Nazar as a speedy guy on that line. On the second line, you have Mikheyev, who's both a tremendous defensive player, a guy who doesn't score much, but also one of the fastest players in the in the NHL. He had an ACL injury 2 seasons ago, and last season, he was not as speedy as he was this season. A lot of people criticize him for not having a scoring touch. Let me push back quickly on that, because Ilya Mikheyev is never a scorer. He's never going to be a scorer, and he wasn't brought in to be a scorer. But one thing that I do like about Mikheyev is his top gear has been much better this season than it ever was last season. And it's great to have Nazar on that wing, as Divi said, because Nazar is going to be a very confidence-based player, and playing alongside Bedard and Bertuzzi, which is a duo that just works this season, is great for his confidence. I wouldn't be surprised, and I mentioned this in the last video, but I would not be surprised if Nazar starts playing better defensively because of how his offense is starting to come together. Ilya Mikheyev on the second line works because he has speed. Dickinson also has speed, but Mikheyev is more of a true speedster on the boards in that 2-1-2 system. On the third line, the speed comes in the middle with Lukas Reichel. Now, Lukas Reichel has been a topic of massive discussion. The bottom line is this: he's currently in a third line role. I think the fourth line is a pretty true fourth line role. Philip Kurashev is on the fourth line just because of how bad he was before he was healthy scratched once again. He had some comical levels of effort. We can talk about that a bit later. But Ryan Donato is a true fourth line center player, and Pat Maroon is just as much a fourth line center player. That is a grindy line with a true identity, which leaves Lukas Reichel on a true third line. Now, because Nick Foligno's on the line, and Nick Foligno's one of the best face-off takers from the wing, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, actually, he has the highest face-off winning rate on the entire Blackhawks roster. He takes a lot of the face-offs on the power play and the penalty kill, but having him on the line as more of a two-way player gives Lukas Reichel and Colton Dach the opportunity to put their nose in the offensive zone a little bit more. And that combination is one that I'm looking forward to seeing, because Colton Dach has an element of physicality in him that literally nobody else in the lineup does. Bertuzzi's a grinder, but he's not as physical as Colton Dach is. Dach actively seeks out hits. Lukas Reichel is one of the fastest 200-foot transition players in the NHL, and Nick Foligno is the grandpa who holds that entire line together. Looking at the blue line, Seth Jones is finally back. Now, I'm not going to sit here and listen to anybody criticize Seth Jones, because he has recovered from his illness and he is in the lineup tonight, and I am extremely excited to watch him. He quietly has 6 points in his last 5 games, and by the way, he leads all Blackhawks in that time frame. So for those of you who like cherry picking statistics, how about you cherry pick that stat? He is leading the Blackhawks over the last 5 games in points. Sure, after he came back from his injury, keep in mind that when he came back from his injury, he had to learn a brand new scheme. The 2-1-2 scheme, especially for defensemen, is completely different because you're making way more reads away from the puck than you would in Luke Richardson's 1-2-2 system. The reason is because in Luke Richardson's system, the only thing that matters is aggression. When you see the puck, you attack the puck. In Anders Sorensen's system, you often, of course, the forecheck matters a lot, the thing that matters a lot more is calculating and making sure you're in the right position and you're covering the right person away from the puck. So for Seth Jones to be recovering from a foot injury, clearly not 100% when he first came, to then have to learn a scheme on the fly that the entire rest of the lineup was already used to playing, he was the butt of a lot of criticism. And frankly, a lot of the people who jumped on the Seth Jones hate train were already looking for a reason to hate on him. I understand he's getting paid $9.5 million. I understand he's not necessarily worth that contract, but he is extremely effective, and he's one of the 40 best defensemen in the National Hockey League. I don't want to see people trying to ship him out for nothing. He is back, and I'm hoping to see a great game out of him to shut some of those haters up, because that will be incredibly satisfying. And a perfect sign that Anders Sorensen trusts him in his return is that he's pairing him with Nolan Allen. We'll get to the rest of the defense right now because it is a very young defense, but Nolan Allen is arguably, and we can talk about some other young players, he's arguably been the worst defenseman. He's not been bad, don't get me wrong, but of the defensemen that are currently in the lineup right now, he's arguably been the most inconsistent. That's to be expected since he is a true defensive defenseman. And again, we just talked about this scheme and how it's tough for defensemen, especially young defensemen, to make reads away from the puck. And this scheme relies on defensemen doing that extensively. So Nolan Allen being at least a little bit inconsistent was to be expected. And Anders Sorensen is trusting him not only on the first pairing, which is a huge element of trust for the young defenseman, but also alongside Seth Jones. And that to me tells me that Anders Sorensen trusts Seth Jones to cover up for some of Nolan Allen's deficiencies, if I can speak English, in this game. So I'm really excited to see how that line works. And of course, Seth Jones is a right-handed defenseman. Nolan Allen is a left-handed defenseman. So from that perspective, it works as well. Looking at the second line, this has been my biggest surprise of the season. I don't know about any of you. Louis Crevier has been shocking to me. And I am not being dramatic. Watching him play next to Alex Vlasic, and by the way, Vlasic was arguably the best defenseman on the Blackhawks last season. This season, a lot of people don't like admitting it, but especially under Anders Sorensen, for all the reasons I already mentioned, Vlasic has not been as consistent. He's had some spectacular games, and he's had some mediocre games. For example, the recent game in overtime, if I can pull this up, I'm forgetting which game it was exactly. The game against the Lightning in overtime, Vlasic was directly at fault for the overtime winning goal. He missed his man, he didn't make the read away from the puck, and he just completely whiffed on covering that pass, leading to an easy goal. Sorry, against the Hurricanes. That's my bad. Not against the Lightning. Against the Hurricanes, Vlasic was responsible for the game-winning goal. Louis Crevier, alongside Vlasic, has been the better defenseman for a lot of games. He's consistent at getting the puck on net, which is something that the rest of this team continues to struggle with. He's consistent with making defensive reads, and he's about as tall and lanky with as long a stick as you're going to find in the National Hockey League. And I want to give a quick shout out to The Hockey Guy, one of my favorite YouTubers. For those of you who if you somehow don't know who The Hockey Guy is, he is one of the best YouTubers in the hockey community. He makes YouTube videos with a whiteboard, and he writes down in exquisite detail every single game that happens every single day, and he covers everything. He's active during the season. He's active during the off season. He's somebody that I look up to extensively. And the reason I'm bringing him up right now, he has a ton of jerseys. My goodness. I don't know what he worked as before. I know some people subscribed to him and joined his community, and they have a better idea of what he worked as before and how he got all his jerseys. But my goodness, he has a lot, including custom ones. And by the way, we'll talk about this later in the stream. When I launch the gaming channel, I'm going to have some custom jerseys, and instead of selling them initially, I'm going to give some of them away. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you know when the gaming channel starting, because I'm going to hire a graphic designer for that. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a great time. But anyways, the reason I'm bringing up The Hockey Guy is because for the past 2 seasons, I've been following a lot of his videos, and one thing he was consistent about is mentioning Louis Crevier whenever he talked about the Blackhawks' top prospects. Now, last season, Crevier was one of the worst defensemen in the NHL. By most statistics, he was the second worst defenseman in the NHL after Isaac Phillips, who was the worst defenseman in the NHL and who often played on the same line as Crevier did. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because every time I watch The Hockey Guy mention Crevier as a defenseman with potential, a possible top 4 player of the future, I always just scrunched my eyes and wondered what the heck this dude saw in him. This season, Crevier is proving me wrong. Now, I'm not going to say that Crevier is going to be a top 4 defenseman. I still have my doubts on that because I think the Blackhawks are a little bit clogged in the top 4 of the blue line, and Crevier would be a spectacular bottom pairing defenseman in a true defensive role, assuming that he continues to develop a little bit offensively and continues to be dynamic in getting the puck on net and scoring whenever he's given the chance. I think he could be a tremendous top 6 player. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to The Hockey Guy for being one of the first on the train to supporting Louis Crevier. The bottom pairing does not have TJ Brodie. TJ Brodie is a healthy scratch, and I will be nice and I will use that as an excuse to talk about him as little as possible during this live stream. I will just say this, my thoughts on TJ Brodie are the exact same as Ben Pope's thoughts. And I don't know how Ben Pope became some controversial figure, but whatever you think of him, whatever you think of his antics on Twitter, whatever you think of him in general, he's one of the best writers. I am a huge fan of Ben Pope and his writing. You could look up what he thinks of TJ Brodie for reference, but a summary would be, I think he needs to be bought out. The performance this season, I had low expectations for Brodie. Let me just put it this way. I had low expectations for Brodie, and he has managed to completely ruin my expectations anyways. So yeah, TJ Brodie's not in the lineup. If I was in charge, I wouldn't even, I would just scratch him permanently. I would send him down to the AHL. I would waive him. I don't think he's bringing any value to this NHL franchise apart from being a tank commander. And we'll talk about the tank probably a little bit later in the stream. But I'm happy to see TJ Brodie not in the lineup. Ethan Del Mastro looked so good, so comfortable on the puck, so much more dynamic than he looked in the AHL in his NHL debut this season. Of course, he had a 4-game stint last season where he looked pretty dynamic defensively as well. Hopefully, he can come in between and find a nice two-way role on this team in the future, or escalate his trade value to get a nice piece in return. And Alec Martinez, the injury-prone veteran who knocked the Blackhawks out of the playoffs in 2012. Of course, that's what he's remembered for. He's been injured for a lot of this season. Hopefully, he starts to get a little bit of a stretch of games in. He's playing on the bottom pairing, probably because Anders Sorensen wants to protect him from himself, wants to protect him from getting injured again. So it doesn't surprise me to see him there. Lobowski says, I'd like to see the Hawks capitalize on Crevier's new higher value and trade him. Now, the thing is, I think his trade value is actually still pretty low because he's only been in the NHL for a few games, 10 or 12 games, whatever it was. And his overall NHL sample size has been poor. This season has been much better, but I really believe that Crevier has more value playing on this team for the rest of the season, and maybe considering if you really do want to trade him, you could possibly trade him in the offseason. And there are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, it will give him a much bigger sample size to wash out the horror that was Crevier's play last season, but also he's one of the only right-handed defensemen in this entire roster. You look at the bottom pairing, Alec Martinez is playing on his offside on the third pairing. If you get rid of Louis Crevier, and Seth Jones has already been in and out with illness and injury, you wouldn't have any right-handed defensemen remaining. So I think Crevier's value in this lineup would be slightly better than if you traded him away. You may think his value is never higher than it is now. The bottom line is, you may be true, but also his value is not that high altogether. Of course, a lot of Blackhawks fans were on Kyle Davidson's backside because, oh, you only got a third-round pick for Taylor Hall. The reality is the Blackhawks have a lot of seconds, a lot of thirds, and draft picks beyond the third round don't really matter. If you look at what you'd get for Louis Crevier, I really do believe that his value in the lineup is probably going to be better than the 4th or 5th rounder that you would get from him anyways, unless you want to flip him for a similar ascending forward prospect, but those also usually don't work out. For now, considering that Crevier was a 7th round pick, you're already getting surplus value from him. It was a tremendous draft pick from he who shall not be named, the previous general manager of the Chicago Blackhawks. You could probably extend him for cheap. Probably even cheaper than Brandon Hagel's second contract, actually. And he's probably going to be a guy who either continues to play at this rate or will just be between the AHL and the NHL. And either one of those two options are surplus value based on where he was traded. Now, let me just delete this overlay because this game's about to begin. I'm not going to be able to play audio from this game. Crevier wasn't overage. He was 19 years old when he was drafted. That's absolutely correct. I'm not going to be able to play audio. I'm going to pull up the stream from a different laptop. Just so you know, just for logistics purposes, I do have a delay on my stream. So everything that you hear, you're hearing on a slight delay. And the same thing happens when I'm replying to your to everything that you're saying in chat. I want to let you know, first of all, just for context, just so you know why I'm a little bit late in replying to you, but also so you know, I am out of market. And I understand that a lot of people who are in market are forced to watch these games illegally. The reason I say that is because I'm able to watch on ESPN Plus where there's almost no delay. And a lot of you guys in the Chicago market are not able to do that. So the delay in the stream is going to help you out because I will be reacting to the stream live. I'm not going to play any audio from the stream, but I'll be talking over the stream for the majority of the time, and I'll be reacting to your chat in the process. I'm going to try to fix this chat really quickly. I'm not sure why you can't really see the chat. Let me quickly double check that. Give me a second. I know this is unprofessional. This is my first stream. I told you guys in advance. You guys need to cut me some slack. Can you guys see the chat on your screen right now? Yes, no, maybe so. Yep. Okay, perfect, Cookie. Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure everybody could see the chat in the stream. Again, I'm a complete newbie in the streaming department. I am also a one-man team. All of these tiny little overlays, the total subs and the Ringside General X logo, all of that was done on a very amateur way right before this game started. So I hope you understand, and I hope you're able to cut me some slack. Connor Bedard is the greatest player of all time, Alex. You have never spoken more truth to me, my dude. You have never been more honest. Rightful Calder Trophy. The -44 last season was a complete farce, completely due to the Blackhawks being a bad team. He's a better defensive player than Brock Faber. I'm going a little too far, antagonizing Wild fans. But yes, Connor Bedard is going to be a tremendous player. I'm not even going to talk about Barstool Chief. I talked about him in the last video. I'm not going to talk about Jeremy Roenick. All I'm going to say for now, before this game starts, is people need to stop freaking out about Connor Bedard. People need to stop it. If you watch him from the beginning of the season to now, his play has been completely different. Over the first 15 to 20 games, he shot top glove every single time he shot. Top glove, top glove, top glove, top glove. It didn't matter which goalie he was up against. It could be Dustin Wolf or it could be Connor Hellebuyck. It could be the shortest guy. It could be the tallest guy. It could be a guy who goes into the butterfly early. It could be a guy who's more of a stand-up guy. It wouldn't matter. He would shoot top glove every time. Recently, he's been diversifying the shot a lot more. He's improved in that aspect. Earlier in the season, he sometimes wasn't really smooth in picking up the puck off receptions. Now he's been a lot better at that. Earlier in the season, he's been often stranded in the offensive zone with absolutely no support. You will continue to freak out about Connor Bedard. I understand that. All I'm saying is, don't change your projection of him just because, look, we're fans. That's our entire job. Our entire job description is to overreact. There's a reason why. I'll read your comment in a second. I really want to read it. Thank you so much for joining from Germany. But there's a reason why my series, when I first started this channel, was unsolicited fan overreactions. As fans, we are supposed to overreact. Everything that our players do, whether good or bad, is going to be completely, to an unbelievably obscene degree, be overanalyzed. That is our job as fans. So I completely understand freaking out about Connor Bedard. But if we're being objective, saying things like, oh, if only the Blackhawks got Macklin Celebrini instead of Bedard is completely nonsensical. That breath is for you, Alex. Empty Machine says, TRG, Tishan from Discord here, stayed up today and watching from Germany. Let's go Hawks. Also, I thought I was going crazy, but not many people have mentioned how Bedard has changed his shot targets. That's absolutely true. He has diversified his shot. And that's one thing I used to love about Patrick Kane. Well, if you guys want to have the Patrick Kane discussion and why he's not currently a member of the Blackhawks, we can talk about that. But guys like Patrick Kane, Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby are some of the biggest addicts of the sport of hockey. They study hockey almost as much as they play it. And one thing all three of those players have been very public about is shooting low. So when Connor Bedard earlier in the season was only shooting high, I always thought, from that perspective, maybe it would be beneficial to have one of those elite superstars in his ears telling him, dude, just because you have a whippy shot, just because your shot is deceptive, just because a lot of times goaltenders can't tell when you're going high glove, and they assume you're going low. And just because you were able to rinse and repeat your shot over and over in the WHL doesn't mean you can get away with only shooting in the same direction in the NHL. And I'm really happy to see that he didn't need Patrick Kane in his ear to figure that out. I don't know if it's a coaching point from Sorensen or from anybody else, and we'll talk about Bertuzzi in a second, but Connor Bedard is starting to diversify his shot. He's starting to become a lot more comfortable in his role, and Frank Nazar and Bertuzzi being alongside him have a lot to do with that. 59 looks like a completely different player on this team. Now, I want to talk about this for a second, and the game is starting, so I'll try to be quick. About Tyler Bertuzzi. First of all, Bertuzzi is known for starting slow and finishing fast. Not only did he do that this season, he had a terrible start under Richardson. He did that last season. A lot of guys in Toronto, a lot of fans in Toronto wanted to ship him out of town in the first half of the season before he earned his way onto the top line playing alongside Austin Matthews, and he was arguably their most impactful overall player in the playoffs as well. He played sometimes with Max Domi, former Blackhawks legend as well. He played a lot of time with Austin Matthews as one of the best complementary, grindy net front scorers in the entire NHL. But the bottom line is he has a history of starting slow and finishing fast. And again, that's part of the whole conversation we're trying to have here about overreacting to everything. Tyler Bertuzzi was always going to have a slow start. So overreacting to that slow start when almost everybody saw it coming anyways, it's just a little bit nonsensical, isn't it? But the other thing is Tyler Bertuzzi's not a fast skater. And I don't know if you noticed this about Richardson's scheme, especially this season. It relied extremely heavily on speed. You look at some of the most successful players under Richardson, guys who Richardson elevated the stock of, guys who played better under Luke Richardson than they did beforehand. The two names that come to mind more than anybody else are Sam Lafferty from 2022 and Jason Dickinson throughout his entire stint. Those two players have two things in common. They're both defensive players, and they both are two of the fastest, most high motor players in the NHL. Tyler Bertuzzi is not fast. He's one of the slowest players in the NHL. The reason he gets over that is because he uses his brain more than a lot of players in the NHL do, and because he's willing to go into battles and to win the puck in the tough areas of the ice. If you watch his goal mix from last season, almost all of them come from the exact same place of the ice. And Athanasiou is not offensive either, but the reason I think he flopped is just because he's not that good of a player, and he had some injuries. Connor Bedard struggled this season, and Tyler Bertuzzi struggled this season, and both of them are not known for their high-end speed. Now, I'm going to shut up for a second because the national anthem is about to begin on my stream. I'm going to enjoy that. You will be able to hear some awkward silence, and I'm going to enjoy the national anthem. I will be right back in about 30 seconds. Yes, also hockey fights cancer. If it wasn't for the Bills game, this would be a perfect first watch along. We get the ceremonial puck drop between the Foligno brothers, Uncle Foligno and Uncle Foligno, both number 17 for their respective teams. What a night this is for these kids, man. The NHL does a lot of stuff wrong. Hockey fights cancer is one of the few things it does completely right. They're not playing the same. I'll talk about that in a second, Rowan. Let's enjoy the national anthem first. Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. The theme night warm-up jerseys not being a thing anymore. It's just so stupid. I'm not going to make this political, but you guys can probably read my mind right now. Let's enjoy the national anthem. Absolute goosebumps every time by the best national anthem singer in the NHL and in all of sports. And away we go. I want to quickly cover some comments in the chat before we go directly into the game. First of all, Rowan says they're literally playing the same, not winning faceoffs, losing by 1 point. Think about it this way. There's some things that are controlled by scheme and by coaching, and there's some things that are not. Connor Bedard is your first-line center. That's just something that's a reality. He's going to be the first-line center when the team is good, and he's just going to need to get better at winning faceoffs. So the fact that they're not winning faceoffs under Sorensen, and they also were not winning faceoffs under Richardson, is not about coaching. Faceoffs are not really coached, and that's why I always thought that the concept of having a face-off guru coming in to help Connor Bedard was always a little bit overrated. A lot of things around faceoffs have much more to do with strength, with lower body strength, with timing, and with stick flex. And Connor Bedard struggles with all of them. In fact, the Blackhawks don't really have a true second-line center who can win faceoffs. The only reason Jason Dickinson is in that spot when he's more of a third-line grinding, checking forward is because they don't have a second-line center. So the fact that they're not winning faceoffs is not really a coaching point. They've been losing by 1 point, but think of how they're losing. Connor Bedard was playing, and I know this is an overstated point in Blackhawks Twitter and Blackhawks social media. Connor Bedard was playing alongside Joey Anderson and Jason Dickinson. That was Luke Richardson's answer to Connor Bedard's slump. That is coaching malpractice. And yes, sure, it's only one coaching point. It only lasted for a game or two. The point is not that. The point is that Connor Bedard was seen in that light because Bedard's skating wasn't on par with what Luke Richardson wanted his skating to look like, likes his forward skating to look like. He was viewed as a liability. Luke Richardson's goal was not how do we facilitate Connor Bedard's offense. Luke Richardson's priority was how do we hide Connor Bedard's deficiencies. So just because the end product is the exact same, they're losing by 1 or 2 points, they're losing in overtime, doesn't mean the team is playing the exact same way. Because think about it this way. Other than the recent influx of young talent in Colton Dach and Korchinski getting a taste, and Frank Nazar, and now Landon Slaggard's going to join. Other than that, the only person in this team that matters more than anybody else is Connor Bedard. So if the Blackhawks are losing when Connor Bedard is producing, it's a completely different result than if they're losing and Connor Bedard is also struggling. And yes, I agree that the results are the same. I wouldn't say they're playing the same. I think Luke Richardson had many more unacceptable efforts than Anders Sorensen has. And keep in mind, Sorensen came mid-season as an interim, and he's installing a new system. That would be hard on any team. And keep in mind, the 2-1-2 is a drastically different system, as we see the Wild get the first 3 shots on target in this game on Peter Mrazek. Hopefully Mrazek is going to have a good game. We talked about this a little bit previously, but we have a few more viewers right now. So I'll say it again. Mrazek is the worst starting goaltender in the NHL this season at goals saved above expected. It's negative 9.5. It's 87th overall in the NHL. He's not having a good season. He had a phenomenal season last year, but now this season has just been tough for him right after the extension. And a lot of that has to do with injury. And a lot of that, frankly, has to do with the team in front of him as well. But hopefully we will get a bit of a bounce back game from him. He saved the first 3 shots on target in this game. I'm sorry, I must have missed what you're talking about, Empty Machine. I'm not sure who are... Oh, you're talking about Jason Dickinson and Joey Anderson being generational offensive line drivers. Of course, that's the case. Of course, there are 2 facts in the NHL. Number 1, Joey Anderson is a true first liner. And number 2, Brock Faber should have won the Calder. Those 2 things cannot be denied by anybody who knows puck. The Blackhawks are just under siege right now, aren't they? Whistle goes. Was that out of play or is that a penalty? He has got experience now. That's absolutely true. The other thing I want to mention as we take a look at Nick Foligno on the bench, a lot of people wanted to see Connor Bedard get the captaincy before the season. Now, you may deny it. You may be honest about it. The reality is the reason you wanted to see that is because you wanted him to be the youngest captain in NHL history. You wanted him to overtake Jonathan Toews. There's a very nice imagery to that idea. I'm not going to double down on my take that Nick Foligno should have been named captain because he was captain and there's no point in gloating in that fact. But all I'll say is when we have meatballs like Jeremy Roenick taking every opportunity, taking every last possible stab at Connor Bedard, Blackhawks legends themselves going after Bedard after a slump, acting like he has no respect, and just because he's frustrated on the ice and in pre-games that he's somehow, a bad leader. That would have been way amplified if he was named captain beforehand. You think Vlasic should be the next captain? I think that's actually a sneaky good idea. We'll talk about the captaincy perhaps a bit later. I think the most likely captain is going to be Connor Bedard. The reason is because he just represents the team of the future more than anybody else does. The Blackhawks were supremely lucky to have the chance to draft Connor Bedard, and I think right when they did that, they're paying their reparations in a way. They're probably going to name Bedard captain. I think Vlasic is going to be a tremendous alternate captain. And a sneaky pick, by the way, Sam Rinzel. I want to talk about him a bit later because he's having a true Hobie Baker style season. And I one of the first content creations that I made this season was about Sam Rinzel. This is way before I reached 1,000 followers on Twitter. I had like 200 followers at the time. So a lot of people in this chat probably are not aware of that. But one thing that stood out when I watched Sam Rinzel last season is his leadership. It seemed like whenever his team was doing the absolute worst, he turned on his experience and he made a huge hit, or he made a brilliant pass, or he had a nice shot on target, or he had some shenanigans after the whistle. It feels like he has a pulse on the rest of his team at any given point, and I think that's a quality, kind of a Brent Seabrooksy type quality that you really want at least one player to have when the team is good. Second City Sports. By the way, you guys should check out Second City Sports on YouTube. Big shout out to him. One of my friends from the Discord. You guys can also join the Discord. I can share a link a little bit later. I intentionally took down the link that I had on my Twitter profile because of how many bots. Second City can talk about this, but how many bots we've had to ban from our Discord. But if you guys want a link and you're not already in the Discord, let me know and I'll paste a link in the chat as well. But Second City Sports says that my idea was you don't name a captain for a few years until Bedard is ready for it, after he signs an extension. That's not the worst idea in the world. And I think Nick Foligno's here for one more season for a very good reason, and that is because he's going to be the captain until somebody else... Oh, I thought that was in. Mrazek looked a little bit unsettled in the crease there. But anyways, Nick Foligno's here on a 2-year deal, and that's very intentional because he's going to be the captain until somebody else claims it. Now, I think there would be a lot of outrage if that next interim captain was another veteran. So I do believe that Connor Bedard is going to be the captain once Nick Foligno retires, not at the end of this season, but probably at the end of next season. And Connor Murphy should try to find a new home elsewhere. He's one of those guys whose trading value is not relevant. And Taylor Hall was also one of those players. And I think we'll talk about the trade a little bit because the outrage is a bit ridiculous to me. But one thing that always stood out about Connor Murphy is he was a player who never complained. And that's one thing that he and Taylor Hall had in common. Taylor Hall was very public that he wanted to re-sign in Chicago. Connor Murphy is another one of those veterans who never complained publicly. You saw Seth Jones complaining a bit. You even saw Nick Foligno publicly being really upset at how bad the Blackhawks were for good reason. But Connor Murphy always took it on the chin and always was the best version of himself. Now, of course, because he was traded here for Nicholas Hjalmarsson, he's always going to be seen in a slightly more negative light. As a shot gets blocked. The Minnesota Wild had the first 6 shots on target of the game so far. The Blackhawks have 2 shot attempts and 0 shots on target in the first 5 minutes of the game. Maybe things haven't changed since Luke Richardson anyways. I'm hoping they start to turn things up a little bit disjointed. For those of you who watched the previous video, you probably know this. But the 2-1-2 system really prioritizes being predictable in counterattacks. And so far in this game, in the first 5 minutes of the game, there have been a lot of passes to absolutely nobody as we get a 4-on-2 the other way, and they score. It's Jared Spurgeon, the Blackhawks killer himself. I remember I don't even think he scored a goal before they played the Blackhawks, and then he scored 2 goals in their first in their first matchup against the Wild. He also scored the last time the Blackhawks placed the Wild. That's just, I don't know what they're doing in transition. Everybody's still in the neutral zone. Jared Spurgeon's able to walk in. Eriksson Ek finds him in the slot. Marco Rossi does a great job with interference, but not really interference, kind of setting a screen for those basketball fans who may understand the concept of a screen. He set a great screen, and Jared Spurgeon scored. 7-0 in shots on goal, 1-0 on the scoreboard. Jared Spurgeon, the hockey killer himself, gets the Blackhawks into a deficit, and now, hopefully, the Blackhawks start to wake up. We'll see what happens. I want Murph to stay. He flipped me a puck over the glass once in Vancouver. I mean, he's a consummate professional. I always found it funny how much stock people put into like flipping pucks over the stands, but it does not shock me at all that Connor Murphy's the kind of guy who spent a little bit of extra time with the fans, making sure their experience is memorable. I'm not sure if your experience was after he came in Chicago, but regardless, this team is hard to watch. And I have a different level of respect for guys like Connor Murphy, guys like Taylor Hall, who's no longer in Chicago. But those people understood that fans deserve better. And instead of just saying it, they always acted on it. So I am not surprised that he did that. They have a shot just missed. Yeah, that doesn't count as a shot on target. We scored on, and we can't play defense. Nice start. 0 shots on goal. Here's the thing. The interesting thing about that whole sequence leading to a 4-on-2 where the Wild scored on is, first of all, one thing that Anders Sorensen had to deal with when he first came in was how bad the line changes were. That wasn't directly an impact on this play specifically, but towards the end of the Richardson reign, there were some horrible penalties for too many men on the ice, and there were some terrible moments of just not changing lines properly. Now, one thing I noticed is when Anders Sorensen first came, the line changes were absolutely crystal clear, spot on, perfect. That, along with a lot of other aspects of the Blackhawks since, has regressed significantly. So, the first thing to note is when you're installing a brand new system and you have certain coaching points that you're trying to hammer home, a lot of times the new coach bump amplifies that a lot more than it otherwise would. When a new coach is in town, you're probably putting a little bit more effort into making sure you're obeying everything he says. And the Blackhawks as a team have regressed on a lot of those coaching points. The second thing to note is the 2-1-2. The 2-1-2 is a system that prioritizes the middle of the ice a lot more. You don't forecheck as blindly as you do in the Luke Richardson system. And a part of that is because you're focusing so much on the neutral zone, sometimes good teams can just find their way past you, leading to odd man rushes because the Blackhawks aren't used to when to stay in the neutral zone and when to backtrack because they're in trouble. That is something that it takes a long time for a coach installing a 2-1-2 to install. Now, the thing is, for those of you who are delusional like I am and want to see a coach like David Carl, who could very well use a 2-1-2 in Chicago, or a coach like John Cooper, which is even more ambitious, who runs a 2-1-2 regularly already in Tampa Bay, this is all very good experience. All of these players, especially the young players who are definitely going to be in Chicago next season, all of them are now used to playing the 2-1-2, and all their growing pains are being amplified this season and hopefully are going to be learning experiences for them. As you watch Ethan Del Mastro involved in a nice little board battle there behind the net, the Blackhawks still don't have a shot on target in this game. What does Sully run in Pittsburgh? I actually have no idea. I apologize. 4 out of 5 of Spurgeon's goals this year are against the Hawks. My dude would be the worst captain in the NHL if it wasn't for the Blackhawks. It's insane. He becomes... Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. Peter Mrazek, you are going to ruin my life. Oh my God. My great-grandma could have caught that, and she's not even alive. What are you waving your glove at, Mrazek? I mean, is he injured? I don't understand this. I don't understand. He's shooting from the half boards. What is that? This is going to be a long day. Second city, Mrazek just outdid himself. He's been horrible this season. Let's be honest. He outdid himself. It's one of the worst goals I've ever seen allowed. I'm speechless. 8-0 in shots on goal. The one thing the Blackhawks were hoping for is a goaltender who could at least soak up a tiny bit of pressure. That is worse. As Bedard tries to get a shot on net. That is worse than anything we saw from Soderblom last season. Soderblom's problem was positioning and understanding how to play his position. That was insanely... I've never seen a play like that from a Blackhawks goaltender. Is he just like not healthy? I don't understand how an NHL goalie can miss that. Oh my God. Divvy says the meme of the Hawks losing either via a blowout or giving up a late lead and losing in overtime. This looks like the first option. Here's the thing. I would have been pretty confident as Seth Jones completely loses a battle. This is going to be a long day, folks. Thank you so much for the 11 of you who are sticking along, who are sticking around and hearing me rant about the Blackhawks. The thing that a lot of people don't appreciate about the Blackhawks over the past 2 seasons, a lot of people say things like, oh, there've been a lot of like moral victories. There've been a lot of, games in which they were competitive. There are a lot of 1-goal losses. So they're really close to contending. No, they're not. The reason why there's so many competitive games is because of goaltending. Peter Mrazek was spectacular in goals saved above expected last season. Arvid Soderblom is basically the exact same way this season. Don't be fooled by final score. Especially under Luke Richardson, they relied extremely heavily on goaltending. The team was trying so hard to be defensively solid under Richardson. Reichel in, he wins a battle. His pass to Foligno is deflected by, who is that? Bogosian, of all people. But anyways, Luke Richardson's entire focus was being defensively solid. And yet he relied so heavily on goaltending that the team wasn't all that defensively solid anyways. The whole point of having Anders Sorensen, and one of the big reasons why I've been impressed with Anders Sorensen over Luke Richardson, has been the offensive production. So the Blackhawks find themselves down 2-0. They finally got their first shot on goal. Laurent Brossoit hasn't given up a shot. Oh, that's touche, the hockey son. You win this chat. At least Laurent Brossoit hasn't given up a soft goal this year. Bro's been injured the entire season. My goodness, I can't believe that. The one thing you need... Oh! Bertuzzi almost found Bedard with a tap, and he just wasn't able to get that pass. Now Nazar is unable to corral the puck. Nolan Allen sends it in deep. Bertuzzi wins a battle. Allen shot. Oh, just deflected wide by Bedard, who breaks his stick. He has to go for a bench. That was a brilliant play by Nolan Allen. But Bedard just wasn't able to get on the end of that hot pass. The Blackhawks finally starting to wake up. Again, that's the thing. It's natural for teams, especially teams like the Blackhawks, to have lulls and to have slow starts and things like that. Especially when you're a team that's not as talented as the teams you're up against. You're going to have that. But when you can't rely on your goaltender to make a simple play, when somebody's just heaving the puck on net from the half wall, you can't expect to win games. You can't expect to get over any lulls in production and any lulls in performance and any lulls in effort. That's just the bare minimum that you expect from a goaltender. And Mrazek hasn't been the bare minimum. It's demoralizing. You're absolutely right. Because guess what? This is not the first time Mrazek's had a bad game. There have been several instances this year that, unlike last year, the Blackhawks as a team have bailed out Mrazek instead of the other way around. This is not the first instance that Mrazek has dropped the ball in these situations. This may be the most comical of them all, because I've never seen an NHL goaltender make that type of mistake, but it's not the first time he's done it. Anyways, the Blackhawks finally get 2 shots on target. 8 minutes left in the first period. The Winter Classic was just... I can't believe the NHL gave the Blackhawks the Winter Classic. I mean, I know why they did it. and they definitely juiced the heck out of Connor Bedard in their promotions. I still can't believe they didn't just give it to a better team as Ilya Mikheyev takes a penalty. And the Blackhawks are going to go to the penalty kill. That is the only aspect of the Blackhawks that was much better under Luke Richardson than it has been recently. And that is the penalty kill was the best in the NHL. Ooh, scoring chances 6-0. Goals 2-0. We get to see the Minnesota Wild and their high-flying offense on the power play. Let me actually look this up. I should have done this beforehand. Again, I wasn't able to prepare as much as I would have liked for this live stream because it was so last minute. But I want to quickly check power play rankings. Also, I'm glad they had like 9 other games on the day with the Winter Classic. If they're going to give it to the Hawks, it should have been against an equally bad team. It just shouldn't have been the Hawks. I know the NHL is trying to get every ounce of money out of this as they possibly can, and the Hawks have arguably the best, if not the best, the second best market in America for the NHL, and that's where the NHL is trying to grow. I understand all of that, but this is not the year to give it to the Hawks. And all of that attention is negative attention right now. When we talk about why it's so hard for people in the national media to understand Connor Bedard not being perfect right now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Blackhawks are being shoved down everyone's throat. While the San Jose Sharks, for example, with Macklin Celebrini and with Will Smith and with Eklund and all the other young talent that they have, are able to rebuild in peace. If you watch Macklin Celebrini play live, you'll appreciate that he's not a perfect player. At least 2 to 3 times a game, he has one of those Frank Nazar from earlier in this season plays where he tries too much and he passes it right to the other team. He just lost 7-2 in the previous game, and he had a couple bad mistakes in that game. The thing is, if I didn't mention it to you guys, you probably wouldn't have known about it, simply because nobody cares about the San Jose Sharks when they're not in the playoffs. Everybody cares about the Chicago Blackhawks no matter what situation they're in. And a big part of that is because they have the so-called best prospect. They have the so-called best prospects since Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard. And a big part of that is the scandal that happened before the Blackhawks picked Connor Bedard. I'm not going to talk about that in the stream. A big part of that is how big of a market it is. And a huge part of that is how much they're being forced down the throat of everybody else. And by the way, they didn't take a penalty. I thought Mikheyev tripped a Wild player, but apparently he didn't. Ringside, no Celebrini sign. You guys, I love Macklin Celebrini. I talk about this a lot privately. Macklin Celebrini is maybe my favorite non-Blackhawks player to watch. The reality is he's one of the best ready-made 18-year-old players we have ever watched. There is not a doubt in my mind that he looks better than any first overall pick since Auston Matthews. You'll remember that Auston Matthews showed up and had 4 goals in his first game and never looked out of place. I love Barkov as well. Celebrini's looked more like an all-around elite first-line center, and I'm emphasizing the word center, than Bedard did at 18. Bedard was a better scorer, and Bedard was more dynamic offensively, but Celebrini looks like a much better center. His effort in the defensive zone has been, sure, inconsistent. You expect that from an 18-year-old, but it's been phenomenal. He's looked so physically mature. He's been physical when needed. He's looked spectacular. I love Celebrini. My issue is not with Celebrini. It's as Bedard tries to spin around, finds Nazar. I'll finish my thought in a second. Nazar gets cross-checked onto the ice, no call. Maybe he could have avoided it, but here comes Ryan Hartman the other way. Is that offsides? I'm watching this while muted, so forgive me if I'm not keeping up with everything. But anyways, the issue I have with the constant Celebrini talk is that Bedard is not allowed to be a 19-year-old. Every single mistake he makes I've seen tweets with nearly 1,000 likes from the Winter Classic on the play on the power play where Bedard entered the zone, dropped the puck back to Seth Jones, who then found, I believe it was Tyler Bertuzzi who scored for the Blackhawks. There were negative tweets about Bedard from that clip. About, oh, look, the NHL is going to be glazing Bedard. And oh, look, all he did was fall down on display. Bedard is not allowed to do anything, whether positive or negative, without constant negative attention. And Celebrini allowed to be an 18-year-old. He's allowed to grow. Will Smith has had several stretches where he looked completely invisible this season. And by the way, that's been a criticism of him in the NCAA as well, even though he was a record-setting center for Boston College. A lot of people are just completely ignoring everything that happens in San Jose. They're judging that rebuild based on clips. And Celebrini can't do anything wrong. Eklund can't do anything wrong. Will Smith can't do anything wrong. Looking even deeper, Sam Dickinson can't do anything wrong. Oh, but his World Junior should be ignored because, Mike Greer is a brilliant GM and fire Davidson. The only reason you have this perspective is, one, you're living under a rock in Chicago, or two, you're not actually paying attention to San Jose. I'm a huge fan of San Jose and a lot of the young players, but they are young players and they're playing like young players do. Oh my God, a miracle just happened. Ryan Donato won a faceoff. Vlasic and Jones are playing together now. Those line combinations didn't last very long. Those people need to get a life. Never met a hater doing better than me. I love that attitude. I agree, Alex. It's like watch Bedard live and then judge. And the other thing about the statistics, I understand that Macklin Celebrini had an unbelievable start this season. Connor Bedard has usually one or two plays every single game where he does something spectacular and he finds a teammate's stick and they just can't finish. The reality is when Celebrini makes those similar plays, his teammates finish way more often than Connor Bedard's teammates do. And I spent a lot of time talking about Tyler Bertuzzi in a positive light. He's also been one of the players who've missed a lot of Bedard assists as well. I'm not pretending like he's been a bad player. I said he's been one of the best players on the Blackhawks. But a big reason why he's putting up this unbelievable near point per game pace in January is because he's playing with Connor Bedard. And guess what? Connor Bedard is back to looking like Connor Bedard. Second City Sports says there's a reason the Hawks and San Jose are 6/7 points behind the third worst team in the league. And yet, nobody really cares about San Jose struggling outside of diehard fans in San Jose. Mike Greer is going to get his way. He's going to find a way to get Matthew Schaefer this season unless another team overtakes him in the draft lottery. And nobody's going to criticize him. Nobody's going to talk about how Tyler Toffoli and Mikael Granlund and all those elite veterans that everybody loves to talk about. Nobody's going to talk about the fact that they have way more pieces in the NHL than the Blackhawks do, and yet they're the worst team in the NHL, and the Blackhawks are higher up in the standings. Nobody cares about that because they're more interested in over-criticizing everything Davidson does or in hating on the Blackhawks as a team in totality that they don't really care about being objective. Alex said, I swear we need a better finisher besides Bert and Nick. That's why it's good Frank is with Bedard, because Frank is a good finisher. Frank is still figuring out how to finish at the NHL level. I think he's had 2 or 3 breakaways and he's gone low on the ice every single time. He is a great finisher, and we saw that in a relatively significant sample size in the AHL. I remember the one goal that stands out for me. He had a couple breakaways, including a couple short-handed breakaways that he completely scored on in the AHL. He just completely nailed. But he had a brilliant, sharp angle shot from basically the right goal line. And he finished it top corner, short side. And it's plays like that make you understand how much potential Frank Nazar actually has. And keep in mind that Nazar is a 13th overall pick. Will Smith was drafted 4th overall. Frank Nazar, once again, was drafted 13th overall. So again, have all of that in context. I believe Eklund was drafted 4th or 5th overall as well. Again, Frank Nazar was drafted 13th overall with a pick that the Blackhawks didn't even originally have. They traded away Alex DeBrincat, who was one of the worst rentals Ottawa's ever traded for the chance to draft Kevin Korchinski. And then they traded away Kirby Dach, who has been nothing but disappointing over in Montreal, for the right to draft Frank Nazar. The Blackhawks didn't even have the pick to begin with. They traded away Kirby Dach, injury-prone, mediocre middle six player, for Frank Nazar. So we're busy comparing the Blackhawks rebuild with the San Jose Sharks rebuild when the Blackhawks, the only top 2 pick they've had other than Connor Bedard has been Artem Levshunov. Nazar fell slightly in his draft year. So I don't know if I should admit this publicly. All of the people who know me in real life know this. I actually wanted Frank Nazar at 7th overall. I was really disappointed when the Blackhawks drafted Kevin Korchinski. I probably should have kept that a secret because I was not creating content back then. So I probably would have been able to carry that to my grave and nobody would have found out. But I was really disappointed when the Blackhawks went with Kevin Korchinski. Not really in the same way as I was a little disappointed with Artem Levshunov, but more because I really liked Frank Nazar. There have been very few prospects who are more middle-driven than Frank Nazar. There are very few prospects with the offensive IQ and natural skill combination as Frank Nazar has. And keep in mind that when Kyle Davidson came in, he came in with a promise to make this team as fast as possible. Clip farming, you would not dare do that to me, Alex. Don't be doing this. I'm trusting you with this information. It's confidential. But anyways, Kyle Davidson was very public about wanting speed. It's the reason he drafted Oliver Moore over a guy like Gabe Perreault. It's a reason why he drafted Marek Van Acker where he did. It's a reason why he went with that profile of player in along the blue line with Korchinski and Levshunov both being extremely mobile defensemen along with having size. Kyle Davidson loves speed, and Frank Nazar is one of the fastest people from the entire draft class. I was extremely surprised that once Kyle Davidson passed on him once, he was able to get him again. I thought he was a top 6 to 7 prospect in that draft. I would have been thrilled with him at 7th overall, and I'm beyond thrilled with him at 13th overall. I don't think that is as unpopular of an opinion as you think circa that draft. Yeah, it's not an unpopular opinion. Here's the thing. I'm very careful with the kind of opinions I share publicly. Why is everyone celebrating? I feel like I missed something. I'm very careful with the kind of opinions I share publicly because whenever I say anything negative, it's misinterpreted as I hate Kyle Davidson. I have a lot of differences of opinion with Kyle Davidson, and if I was general manager, the prospect pool would look a lot differently than it would, for better and for worse. There's a very good reason that I am not general manager of the Chicago Blackhawks, and that needs to be known. But I'm not the world's biggest Kyle Davidson defender. The only reason I appear to be that way publicly is because every single move that Kyle Davidson makes, it doesn't matter if he gets up to sip a cup of coffee, that move will be scrutinized by the same meatballs in the Twitter community. The same 3 or 4 people are going to say, fire Davidson because, Taylor Hall deserves a first-round pick in return, not a near second round pick, as Mrazek almost let in another bad goal. That was a bad rebound, but thank God no Minnesota Wild were near him to soak that up. Sorry, I'm going silent. I'm not used to live commentary as Connor Bedard fails to clear the zone. Kaprizov's shot is blocked by Vlasic. The puck comes and Mrazek is able to cover it up. But again, what I was saying is every single move that Kyle Davidson does that isn't a fireworks, huge, game-changing move is needlessly scrutinized. So a lot of my public energy goes into just explaining to a lot of people that not every trade has to be a game-winning, game-changing trade, especially with the case of a player like Taylor Hall, who is extremely well-respected around the NHL, who is one of the few veterans who wanted to re-sign with the Blackhawks and was publicly on board with the rebuild, and who's a spectacular member of the locker room. Connor Bedard talked positively about him, and you could tell just based on watching his interviews how intelligent of a player Taylor Hall is. When you have a player like that, getting the best possible return from him is not that important, especially on a team like the Blackhawks, because they have more than enough second and third round picks. What matters more is, of course, yes, you want to maximize the value you get, but you also want to do right with Taylor Hall, and you also want to facilitate your own success as much as possible. Not every trade has to be a game-winning, oh my God, Kyle Davidson fleeced the other team. He's my GM, Kyle from Chicago for the win. Not every trade has to be like that. So a lot of my public persona goes into explaining that to some people who refuse to believe it. And I can call them out by name, but I won't do that right now, as the Blackhawks are about to end one of the worst periods I've ever watched from them this season. 11-1 shots on goal advantage for the Minnesota Wild. Let me actually check what's going on in the NFL, just to update you guys. The Chiefs are beating the Bills. No surprise there. The Eagles beat the Commanders. So Caleb Williams is officially the best quarterback from the draft. Jaden Daniels couldn't win a Super Bowl. He's an absolute scrub. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson are going to take over the NFL next season. I can't say I wasn't rooting for that result. But anyways, back to hockey. The Minnesota Wild are going to take a 2-0 lead thanks to Peter Mrazek being the best player on Minnesota. They also have an 11-1 shots on goal advantage. Now, as we enter the first intermission, I have some fun things to do. I know we have 14 concurrent viewers, and it's going to take me a second to figure this out. But I want you guys to let me know. Okay. Let me figure this out for 1 second. Audio, ringside. Can you guys see the new screen? Okay, perfect. All right, so what we're going to do is, now that we're in the first intermission, especially since the Blackhawks are completely, whatting the bed, Alex says you should do a hockey Kahoot. Now, I thought about that, but first of all, I don't want to go too far into Johnny Superman's lore. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. He does a lot of hockey Kahoots. I want to make this a little bit distinctive, but also, I am right on the verge of releasing a second channel, and that is the Ringside Gamer. It's not ready to be debuted, and actually, my graphic designer is somewhere in this chat. I'm not gonna dox them, but they know who they are. They're somewhere in this chat, and I appreciate them showing up for this stream and checking this out. But yeah, my graphic designer is working on a completely new rebrand for that channel. It's not really going to be connected to this channel. There's going to be some hockey stuff. I believe the first series is going to be a Blackhawks realistic rebuild. Essentially, I'm going to take EA Sports NHL and their god-awful game, and I'm going to, instead of going by the meta, and instead of going by... Oh, wait, graphic designer, speak now or else hold your peace. Well, he is somewhere in this chat. I'm not going to say who it is. Hasn't been chatting very often, but he's somewhere here. I'm not sure how I can actually check if they're still in the chat. It would be embarrassing if they weren't. But anyways... a lot of it's going to be related to hockey, and my first series is going to be based on EA Sports NHL. It's going to be a realistic rebuild, and my goal is, instead of going with the meta and going with chemistry and finding the best coach and all the meta that is characteristic of EA Sports NHL, I'm number one going to use Vasi's roster, for those of you who are familiar with that, and number two, I'm going to completely ignore what I would do in the game to win Stanley Cups. And I'm instead going to go with what I would do if I was the general manager of the Blackhawks in real life. Alex is not my graphic designer. I would love to see him graphic... You know what? If anybody else wants a graphic design for me, if you want like some sort of competition, I can give you like $5 to graphic design something for me, just as a joke for content later. But Alex is not my graphic designer. I can assure you that. But essentially, the first series on this new channel, the Ringside Gamer channel, is going to be a gaming series where I realistically rebuild the Blackhawks. However, a lot of it is not going to be related to the NHL at all. So, to kind of diversify, I want to challenge some of you to a typing game. And we'll play some other games as well. But the first person to type this URL in and jump into a game is going to have a typing race against me. Basically, you're racing against me head to head. Whoever can type faster wins. The Hockey Sun says, the thing about franchise mode is that developing prospects can be very challenging. For some reason, they stall out completely. Okay, so I'm not, again, my series is not going to be focusing on the meta, but I will comment on the meta for a second here. The meta in franchise mode is number one, any created player is not going to develop as well as players who are already in the game. The second part is any AI created player is probably going to stall out around 94, 95. Franchise, yeah, because it's all cheese, yeah. The thing is, with my new series, I'm not going to focus on the meta at all. So I'm going to ignore everything about how to develop prospects. I'm probably not even going to focus on scouting because I'm going to go with Vasi's rosters and... Oh, we have people who are looking to start the race. But I'm not going to focus on the meta at all. Okay. Let me just finish this race. I have to lock in. But I'm not focusing on the cheese at all in the new series. Anyways, I need to lock in for this. I need to show a guest, whoever that is, who is the best typer in this chat. I apologize for the awkward silence. bro, locking in for typing in. All right, you know what? This guy's taking too long to start. Okay, let's play the higher lower game together, all right? We'll go classic. And we're gonna go based on searches. I'm not gonna go political. But I want everybody here. And I have a few gaming options. I have a few gaming options after this as well. We have a good 10 minutes. And I also want to talk about Nick Lardis in the intermission as well. But I want to get through a few. What the heck is this? Karachi bombing? Are you trying to get me demonetized? This is my first ever stream. What the heck? Thank goodness it's lower. My goodness. Chevrolet has to be higher. I need to get Karachi bombing off my screen. Chevy obviously has... They have some good EVs right now. Parkinson's disease. Ooh, a medical one. Ooh. From the MedSide General. Who? So here's the thing. Parkinson's disease has more of a niche than Chevrolet. Everybody's kind of into cars. Only people who are either affected by or know somebody who's affected by or in the medical field would be typing in Parkinson's disease into Google. So I think it's a little bit split. Cookie says higher. The Hockey Sun says higher. Alex, okay, Cookie said both. I don't think you could do that. But Alex says lower. I'm going to go with lower on this one. Oh, it's not even close. Train spotting. What? Breaking news. The ringside has left hockey and become the medical general. Well, I'm in medical school, so I guess I am the medical general. Lower. Yeah, I agree. Oh, who's typing in train spotting? What? What kind of mutants are on this game? What? I mean, at least Parkinson's disease has some value to it. What is going on? The Hockey Sun says me. That's great. All right, and keep in mind that even though this may not be the best... Even though this may not be the best possible intermission activity, again, keep in mind, this is my first ever live stream, and a lot of this is going to be trial and error. I want to find a way to get something that's really interactive. The thing about like Puckdoku and things like that is they are interactive in a certain way, but they're also not interactive at all. Train spotting has crashed your browser. I do not blame that at all. I appreciate it. All the way from Germany at like 2:30 a.m. getting compliments that I'm doing great. I really appreciate it. But I really want to point out, we will be doing these watch-alongs a lot more. And when we launch the Ringside General account, we will be doing a lot of multi-streaming. A lot of the gaming stuff, especially non-hockey related gaming stuff, is going to be live streams. It's going to be multiplayer stuff. So yeah, we're going to go lower. We're going to go through a few of these. But a lot of it's going to be live streaming. And the empty space has to be filled. Oh my goodness, not again. It's better than 20 minutes of hockey with one shot on. Hillsborough. We have two disasters on our screen. Who is behind this game? Karachi bombing and Hillsborough disaster. Are you trying to imply that this live stream is a disaster? This is just a nightmare. Somebody get this off my screen. Higher, way higher. Okay, nobody cares about Karachi's bombing. Okay, whatever. Mozambique has to be higher, right? Yeah, it's an entire place. Nobody cares about the disaster. Floyd Mayweather versus Mozambique. This has to be higher. This has to be high. Yeah, 10 times as high. Aretha Franklin versus Floyd Mayweather. I think it's referring to the Hawks first period. Yeah, the absolute disaster is referring to the Hawks first period. I don't want to get canceled by comparing it to the Karachi bombing, but oh my God. Ethan Del Master has his interview right now. We're doing more important things though. Lower. Oh, it's not even close. Okay. Floyd Mayweather. I guess people care about money. Poker's definitely higher. What? Oh, I guess they're only gambling addicts in our Discord channel, not on Google. That's a great sign. Or you know what? I'm going to do the beat the clock version, and then we'll move on to another game. Let me quickly check how far away we are. Okay, we have a few minutes. We'll do beat the clock, and then we will go to a different game. Again, I'm trying to iron out some of these things. We can also do some React stuff in another intermission. I want to diversify. I want to see what I'm good at. I want to see what you guys enjoy. So we'll do one more higher, lower, and then we'll move on to a different game. All right? Beat the clock. Okay, we already know this. Lower. Karachi bombing's lower. You really love the Karachi bombing, eh? What the heck? You're really getting me? Can you show this on stream? What the heck is going? This is a foul. What is happening? I should have never revealed that I am in medical school. Somebody's behind this game and they're trolling me. Somebody get this off my screen. Can you even show that on stream? I'm gonna get banned. Jaws has to be. Oh, Jaws is low. Okay, Jaws is lower than psoriasis. The Houston first stream immediately canceled. My first ever video on YouTube was talking all high and mighty about how I am a family-friendly channel. Higher, yes. Houston Rockets, you're right. Sorry, I should be focusing on the game. LA Clippers. Ooh, LA Clippers. LA Clippers, second most popular basketball team in LA. But compared to Houston, it is a bigger market. I'm going to go hot. What? No. Nobody cares about the Clippers. I mean, I know they're the second most popular basketball team in Los Angeles. I'm in the greater Los Angeles area. I've never met a Clippers fan. Everybody here is a Lakers fan. In the nearby barbecue joint, they have an entire mural of Kobe Bryant. You go downtown LA, there's graffiti of Kobe Bryant everywhere. There's even some LeBron James in the Lakers jersey. I didn't realize the extent that nobody cares about the Clippers. Not Paul George, not anybody else in the city. Nobody cares about them. The new stadium is super cool. I've actually been there. It's a nice little place. LA has a lot of great sports venues. And for those of you who are hockey-only fans, I'm a fan of a lot of sports. You can probably tell by the way I'm talking. I'm a huge fan of the NFL. I'm a huge fan of the Premier League. I love watching the World Cup. And the World Cup is coming to the United States, Canada, and Mexico in 2026. And LA is going to be doing a lot of the hosting because they have several brand new facilities from not only LA, but California in total. You have SoFi Stadium. You have Crypto.com Arena. You have all over California. You have a lot of new venues. We'll do one more beat the clock lower. Let's just speed run this. What's your Prem team? Let's see if you're cool or not. Actually, how about you tell me your Prem team first? Karachi bombing. Best diets. Do more people care about their diet or about the Karachi bombing? Let's cancel a lot of people by saying higher. Nobody cares about the tragedy, the life-threatening tragedy in Karachi. They care about their own physique. I'm trying not to get political here. I'm trying not to get political here, man. This image is absolutely diabolical. Dentists are China. Lower. Oh, barely lower. Southern United for life. Okay. Usher or the dentist. Boys, you guys have to give me responses quickly. We're against the clock here. I'm gonna go higher. Never mind. Now look at this. Nobody cares about Usher anymore. This isn't 2002. If Taylor Swift was the If Taylor Swift was the option, she'd probably win the game. All right, you know what? We have a few more minutes. There was another game that I wanted to take a look at. And that is the little circle eating game. Now, the reason I wanted to look at this is because, and I'm trying to pull up everything, just making sure you guys can see it, and you guys should be able to see it on your screen. The reason I was interested in looking at this is because there's a multiplayer game mode. I don't exactly know how to do that. The Rinkside General. Yeah, a blast from the past. I love games like, oh, I guess I'm going to have to abbreviate my name. Just TRG is fine. Did he higher or lower? Baby oil, higher or lower? That game was about to cancel me completely. I might as well take it the rest of the way. Okay, so play. Okay, let's go with party mode. I will create one. You guys can. I'm gonna paste this in the Discord for those of you who are in the Discord. You guys can check this out. But if you click this, you should be able to play in party mode. And this will be the last game. We'll talk a little bit about the Blackhawks prospects after this. And for the record, you're not cool, Alex. The Red Devils, really? Manchester United. My prem team is Chelsea. They had a great run in the beginning of the season. They were in the title race for all of 2 weekends before they fell off, as expected. They fell 3-1 to Manchester City. Just an absolute disaster class from their goalie, Robert Sanchez. He needs to go, blood. He just needs to go. He's a huge liability, even worse than Mrazek is for the Blackhawks. How to join Discord? That's a great question. I'm going to paste a Discord invite link. Invite people. Edit invite. No limit. Generate new link. Copy. And I'm going to paste this into our chat. Win a title first, then talk. Manchester United, their best move over the past season is sending Anthony Sarri, goofy looking, over to a lesser league. They're never going to win. They're never going to win a title either. I think Chelsea are closer to a title than Manchester United are. Yeah, United have won since Fergie. All right. I didn't come here to get grilled on my choice and team. All right. Can you guys use the Discord invite link or no? I'll just paste the game invite into our YouTube chat. How about that? Do we have 2 Manchester United fans here? Okay, let me just make this clear. I have a lot of respect for Man U fans. I have zero respect. Yeah, I thought it said hidden. I have zero respect for City fans because outside of like maybe 200 of their entire fan base, nobody cared about City until the Dubai money came. Nobody cared about them until the oil money came. Period 2 is starting soon. We could try to get one game in before that. Or, you know what? We can do this in the second intermission. You're right. Empty Machine. You're right. I'm wrong. So we have the invite link in the YouTube. You guys can feel free to join. I think it's one person at a time. And this is a bit of a blast from the past. We will do this in second intermission. I actually wanted to react to one of the hockey guys. Not the hockey guy. What's his name? Hockey Psychology's videos in the second intermission. But we will probably be able to do both. Hopefully somebody signs Penandes. He cries too much to be in the Prem. He matches low. I've seen it all. Man U fans turning on Fernandes. I understand, by the way. I'm not grilling you. I completely understand. It's just that back when Chelsea fans were busy defending Mason Mount, Man U fans were just insufferable about Bruno Fernandes. It's just funny to see both of our franchises, both of our clubs, completely turn on each respective player. It's Fernandes, Bruno, not Penandes. I'm sorry for offending you. Oh. All right, second period is underway. Hopefully, the Blackhawks are going to put up. Alex, you're funny. I like you. Hopefully the Blackhawks put up a better performance in this period than they did in the first. It can't possibly get any worse. Even you hate him, though. You hate your captain that much? All right. You know what? There are a lot of players on Man U that I do genuinely enjoy. I'm not going to lie about that. It's just Fernandez is not one of them. Oh, switch screen. You're right. I'm so sorry. This is so unprofessional. Watch along screen. There you go. You guys should be able to see it now. Thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate it, Alex. Mikheyev finding Nolan Allen. Shot is blocked by Bedard. And the Wild easily break it out the other way. Eriksson tips it into the zone. Nolan Allen chasing. Allen wins it. Oh, it's icing. Never mind. You hate Maguire, Onana, and Bruno. I never understood why they paid so much money to Onana. Like, I hate Robert Sanchez, but the thing about Robert Sanchez is he costs basically no money. He costs basically the same amount as Petrovic, as Gaga Slonina, as the guys that Chelsea bought to send out on loan. So as much as Robert Sanchez is just a menace to watch, he costs basically nothing. Compared to Onana, they spent like 72 million pounds or something insane like that. Yes, Divi, also, you want to join the Discord, how do you do it? So my most recent video does not have a Discord link, but if you look at any video from before that point, it will have a Discord link in the description. I apologize that because I'm live streaming from my computer, I'm unable to post a link in the YouTube channel, in the YouTube chat. That was a horrible pass by Nazar. He got away with it. He almost got it back, taken away again by Eriksson. Some growing pains from Nazar over there. Hey, Divi hopped into the server. Welcome in. He found his way into the Discord. Because Eric Ten Hag's bald ass wanted to make his 2019-2020 team over from Ajax. Absolutely. I mean, there's no universe in which Antony's a 100 million pound player. No universe. And now him being sent out on loan is just insult to injury. As a shot almost trickles past Mrazek into the net again. Boldy playing pitch and catch with Spurgeon. The Blackhawks killer gets it to the slot. Bedard, nice little move, but he fails to clear the zone. That's one thing that Bedard needs to get a lot better at. You need to get the puck out of the zone when you're hemmed into the zone. You just need to get the puck out sometimes. You don't need to be fancy. Just get the puck out. When in doubt, get it out. In any case, the Blackhawks are completely hemmed in the defensive zone. The first line is running on fumes right now. Connor Bedard chasing at the blue line. The Wild are able to keep it in. Matthew Boldy and the rest of the second line. It goes off of Marco Rossi's backside, trickles into the blue paint, and the Wild are unable to get the puck into the net. Nazar, a great second effort to get the puck out, and then a bad pass. I don't know what Del Mastro is doing. Del Mastro, another turnover. A hot pass almost finds Matthew Boldy. His tip goes just wide. He was just unable to corral it. The Blackhawks are just playing a sloppy brand of hockey. This isn't about skill. This isn't about scheme. This isn't about talent. It's about players not making the right decisions. It's so frustrating to watch. This is the kind of thing that you saw from the Blackhawks earlier in the season. And although Anders Sorensen has done a lot of good stuff with the scheme, he hasn't coached the stupid out of this team yet. And these are just all unenforced errors. Passes to nobody, dump-ins when you should be finding a pass. Lucas Reichel, I appreciate you trying to find Foligno there, but that pass was never going to work. And then look how clean the Wild are getting the puck out. Vlasic a turnover, Foligno a shot, and that goes up high. Sorry, that was Kurashev with the shot. The Blackhawks almost hold the zone, but the Minnesota Wild are able to get out, finally showing some life in the other zone. Not enough, but at least a little bit better. It's just frustrating to watch all of these constant self-enforced errors. The stupid is going to be David Carl's job to fix. That's a great way of thinking. All I'll say is this. David Carl is a first-time head coach whenever he takes his job. And if he decides to take this job specifically, it's going to be because the Blackhawks convinced him to go away from an ideal situation as Donato shows off speed that he never had last season, spins back, Foligno a shot, Maroon a shot. Ooh, Maroon almost crashing into Gustafsson in the net. He gets a lot of attention in the blue paint. Maroon with a nice little shot, the third shot on goal for the Blackhawks, and it's covered up. At least trying to instill some life into this dead Blackhawks group. Already tied the shot. Was that the fourth shot on goal? Empty Machine says, already tied the shot total from the first period. I'm surprised you're able to keep up with the math, given that it's like 4 a.m. where you are. You are a machine. Your username is completely justified. Empty Machine for real. Martinez had a nice little slap shot. We see a slow replay. It's blocked by the beautifully mustached Wild defenseman. Guys, oh my God, we got a shot on goal. Let's celebrate. There you are. Yeah, now they're at 3. Yeah, they were at 2 in the first period. Now they're at 3. How does an NHL team, even if they were trying, how does an NHL team get 3 shots on goal in 30 minutes? I don't care who you're playing. That's hard to do if you're trying to do it. It's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. And yet, from Luke Richardson to Anders Sorensen, everybody's been stressing the importance of just getting shots on goal. And they're at 3 in 30 minutes. Unbelievable. Just insane. Thanks for talking a lot, because holy blank, I'm almost falling asleep. Actually, whoa, I have my little sound bar. I don't even have to bleep myself out. Let me rephrase that, Alex. So thanks for talking a lot, because holy, I'm almost falling asleep watching this game. I'm the same way. Here's the thing. When I was planning this stream over the past day, I had this great vision of live commentary and interactive games. By the way, I'm extremely thrilled. I don't know how many people we have in the chat right now. Let me actually check. We have 10 people in the chat, and I'm absolutely thrilled with that number. So this is not me being ungrateful in any way, but I had this huge impression that I'm going to show up and talk through the game like I'm Pat Foley, and I'm going to, there's not going to be a dull moment. I'm sitting here watching a game in which the Blackhawks have 3 shots on goal in 30 minutes of play. And I'm amazed that anybody's in chat still talking to me right now. But it's hard to talk over a game like this. The easiest thing to do is just check what's going on in the NFL right now, where the Chiefs have a 21-16 lead over the Bills. We could talk a little bit about this game in the ad break if you want. Josh Allen, 13 for 20, 150 yards and a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes matching him bar for bar. He's 10 for 13, 132 yards, 1 touchdown. Kareem Hunt, blast from the past from Patrick Mahomes' rookie season. Actually, he was there when Alex Smith was still the starting quarterback. He's doing pretty well. He has a rushing touchdown. Xavier Worthy, the speedster who was basically invisible for the entire regular season, now has a touchdown. James Cook, Dalvin Cook's little brother, has a rushing touchdown as well. Honestly, it's kind of nice that you're doing this instead of being fed the regular dose of CHSN propaganda. I don't know if I have the energy. Do you guys want to hear my thoughts on CHSN? That was actually one of the first videos I was ever planning to do on this channel. How horrible CHSN has been. Now look, I'm not even talking about the actual the rollout of the channel, because that's been said over and over. The weird propaganda around CHSN has been absurd. From, oh my God, look at our innovative new scoreboard where Chicago always comes first. You're ignoring the fact that having Chicago on top, regardless of whether they're at home or on the road, actually is functionally worse. It's a worse option than the default. And then very quietly, they had to fall back on that. And now they have more of a normal scoreboard. Everything about CHSN is not thought through from the rollout. The only good thing about CHSN, which was an improvement over Comcast, has nothing to do with the network itself. It's Rick Ball in commentary, because my goodness, he's phenomenal. Other than that, CHSN is awful. And you know, I try not to pile on Jamie Faulkner hate because I know a lot of people who hate her just hate her for completely non-hockey reasons. But this is a part of your job, dude. You need to do better because it's not hard to get TV deals done. We're more than halfway through the season, and you still haven't figured out how to get Comcast to carry your channel. That's unacceptable. The podcast that they do can be depressing too. Are you talking about the Breakaway podcast with Charlie Romiliotis and Pat Boyle? It's one of the very few podcasts that I actually try to catch. I'm frankly too busy to watch a lot of other content lately. The Blackhawks being a terrible team is about as far as I go with content. I used to watch a lot of the Among Us streamers too, the disguised toasts and Saikunos of the world, but yeah, I don't have time to watch a lot of podcasts anymore. What's your favorite hockey/Hawks podcast? That's an excellent question. I have 2 favorite hockey podcasts, and I'm still looking for my favorite Hawks podcasts. Hawks PK Time, yeah, that was an interesting call. But Nick Foligno goes to the box, and the Hawks are going to be on the PK. 32 Thoughts doesn't count. Obviously, that's going to be my number one. I mean, if 32 Thoughts doesn't count, then I'm going to go with The Sheet with Jeff Merrick. He has a lot of uploads. I'm not able to listen to every one of his uploads, but 32 Thoughts, I don't care how busy I am. I don't care if it's an exam week. I don't care if I'm behind on making content. I don't care if I have a wedding in the family. I don't care what happens in my real life. I make it a point to watch every 32 Thoughts episode. And if you want to be an educated hockey fan, and I'm not claiming to be an educated hockey fan myself, because frankly, I'm starting to get too busy to be completely educated, even about the Hawks. But if you want to be an educated hockey fan, step number 1, as Kirill Kaprizov dances in, that's a double minor? Oh, I'm so sorry. I've been yapping like an idiot. I missed that it's a double minor. The Blackhawks are in trouble as Mrazek again misses his glove. He's lucky that Kaprizov shot one just wide. Crevier with a great block and a great clearance the other way to kill some time off. But yeah, these refs, I didn't actually see the penalty because I was too busy yapping. But yeah, 32 Thoughts is my number one podcast. I watch every single episode. That's my number one podcast, whether hockey related or not. My second hockey related podcast would be The Sheet with Jeff Merrick. I try my best to watch it whenever I can, usually on my way to and from work. But that would be my second one. I used to watch a lot of, I saw he got an unsportsmanlike, but was it for, yeah, it was for complaining. The Wild player did embellish though. I feel like the refs are just on a power trip. Whatever. The Blackhawks don't deserve any benefit of the doubt anyways. It's not like they had momentum that was killed by a bad call. So I try my best not to criticize refereeing. And I think this is a perfect instance where we don't need to criticize refereeing because the Blackhawks don't deserve anything. Alex has typed out a guide on how to score. So let's read this together. You know what? Let me read this with a megaphone. Are you guys ready for this? A megaphone effect. To Blackhawks, how to score a goal. 1, take a shot on goal. 2, beat the goalie. 3, wait, you guys don't know how to do that? Well, no, ass, because holy blank, you guys are ass. Thank you very much, Alex. A moment of silence for those fans who paid to watch this game. For the last 2 games, Student Rush has been available on Friday and Sunday games. That's insane. I feel bad for anybody who... This is why... The thing that I was talking about earlier in the stream, about there are few veterans on this team and on every rebuilding team that get it, that understand that the world does not revolve around them, that if it's not for the fans who are going through unbelievable sacrifice, who are taking time and money and resources out of their busy schedules to watch their team play, if it wasn't for them, they wouldn't have a job. And there are a few veterans on this Blackhawks team that truly understand that. And Taylor Hall is one of them. And Connor Murphy is one of them. And that's why I respect those players more than your typical average bottom 6 player. Because it doesn't take a lot of effort to go slightly above and beyond and to acknowledge that your fans are going through a lot by watching you not being able to connect a basic pass on the ice. You can act like, oh, in every post-game press conference, you can say BS like, oh, the fans may not like it, but we are harder on ourselves than anybody else is. Yeah, but you're getting paid millions of dollars for the privilege of being hard on yourself. Fans have to take money out of their own pockets to watch a completely dysfunctional team, from ownership to the bottom of the roster, head to toe, completely dysfunctional team. And they do that day in and day out. And that's why, and Logan is mentioning Tyler Johnson. That's the one thing that pissed me off about Tyler Johnson more than anything else. I wasn't mad at his production because it was up and down. I was never mad at his effort. I was mad that he didn't have the common courtesy when he was leaving to at least pretend, at least act like he was thankful for the opportunity. Alex says, okay, we're talking about vets. Okay, here's what I noticed about vets on the Hawks and every other team. The Sharks were down 3-0, and then the Sharks had 3 veterans fight and get 3 5-minute penalties. Now, that's kind of the old man's culture in the NHL. I want to do some research on this. I want to see if fights actually make a difference when it comes to momentum. Because anecdotally, of course, everybody thinks they do. And as Mrazek makes actually a pretty good save on the short side with 43 seconds left. It's been a pretty good penalty kill for the Blackhawks, keeping the Wild on the perimeter. But anyways, what I was saying is a lot of people assume that fights have a huge determining factor in which team has momentum. I would push back on that slightly because you look at every single time a fight, especially when a bad team is fighting, every single time that happens, you see the exact opposite effect happening as well. Now, of course, there could be strategic fights in which your worst player drops the mitts with the other team's best player, and then you have 5 minutes without the other team's best player on the ice. So from that perspective, of course, you're benefiting your team with momentum by taking the best player on the other team. Okay, the Wild scored again. Do 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 do. 16 shots on goal to 3. 3-0 lead for the Wild. I guess I'm just gonna keep yapping about fights in hockey because it's not like we have anything interesting to talk about in this game. I don't know if Joel Eriksson Ek got a touch on that. We should be able to see. Yes, he did. A nice little shot pass from Kirill Kaprizov over to Joel Eriksson Ek. They're just skating circles around the Blackhawks. Just says, I think they rile a team up, but don't have a huge implication for a game. The reason why I think I may be wrong, and I think Empty Machine's making the same point here, hockey is a very emotional sport. And a lot of times, especially because of the inherent luck involved in hockey, I think momentum is a real thing. And one thing that I really perked my ears up about in the offseason was Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast said that he does not believe that momentum carries over from game to game. And I always disagreed with that. And I'll talk about why in a second as Mrazek makes another save coming way out of his net to do so. And Del Mastro recovers it and then loses it over to Uncle Foligno. Oh, that's a nice little pass. Lucas Reichel gives the puck away, gets it back. Lucas Reichel behind the net, wheeling and dealing before losing it to Middleton. Anyways, the reason why I think fights could have a bigger impact than I'm giving them credit for is because I think momentum is a real thing. As Connor Bedard almost gets, they have a different line. Nazar's off the first line. Why is Lucas Reichel on the first line? Or is that just a double shift from Bedard and Bertuzzi? I'm not sure. But momentum is a real thing in hockey, and that's one thing that I think could be some proof that fights do have an effect because they do rile up everybody involved. You see them emotionally with the stick taps and everything else. The Hockey Sun says, I think Elliot is specifically referencing the playoffs in that clip, but I could be wrong. You are absolutely correct. The reason why I brought that clip up is because in one of my least viewed videos, I talked about why I disagreed with that. And my explanation was in 2015, I don't know if a lot of you guys remember 2015, and I know some people in this chat are too young to remember 2015 in any case. But in the Western Conference Finals, the Blackhawks were up against the Anaheim Ducks. Give me a second. I'm going to take a sip of water. That's good. So anyways, in the Western Conference Finals, In the Western Conference Final in 2015, the Blackhawks came up against the Anaheim Ducks. Now, you guys may not remember that Anaheim Ducks team, but I remember this like it was yesterday because I have never been more stressed. And I never thought that the Blackhawks would lose a series more certainly than I did in that game. That was the first series that I ever thought a first-line center was outplaying Jonathan Toews in a head-to-head. In almost every other series before that point, whenever the opposing team was on home ice, they would actively keep their best defensive player away from Toews. Because remember, Toews and Kane didn't always used to play together. So a lot of times, the best defensive center used to be lining up against Patrick Kane. The exception came with the Anaheim Ducks. They were playing Ryan Kesler head-to-head against Jonathan Toews, and I swear to you, Jonathan Toews couldn't escape from Kesler if he wanted to. The Anaheim Ducks were content with having Kesler in Toews' grill the entire season. And for 4.5 games, that worked to perfection. Corey Perry was being his typical Corey Perry self. We don't need to say anything more about that. Ryan Getzlaf was still in his prime. The blue line still had a lot of superstar players. I genuinely thought, especially considering how good Ryan Kesler played against Jonathan Toews, I thought the Blackhawks on paper were outmatched for the first time in a very long time. And you remember the blue line for the Blackhawks in that entire playoff series. You had Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook. You had Nicholas Hjalmarsson and Johnny Oduya, who was a late acquisition in the season. The Blackhawks were rolling 4 defensemen the entire playoffs. Duncan Keith put up insane time on ice numbers and had one of the most deserved Conn Smythes later on in the playoffs that I've ever watched live. But keep in mind that the Ducks' entire goal that series was grinding the heck out of the Blackhawks. And I thought that because the Blackhawks were rolling out only 4 defensemen, there is no way that Duncan Keith and Nicholas Hjalmarsson and Brent Seabrook specifically, but also add Johnny Oduya to that group, but specifically those 3, I thought there's no way there's no way they would survive how much the Ducks were wearing the team out. And Jonathan Toews looked like a shell of himself. Patrick Kane was basically a one-man wrecking crew on the ice. You guys remember his spin around backhand that beat Frederik Andersen to keep the Blackhawks in the series. Patrick Kane was playing well, but basically the entire other team was getting grinded in and out that entire season. All of that changed with Jonathan Toews in the last minute and a half of Game 6, scoring 2 goals in regulation. From that point on, my entire assessment of the team changed overnight. Now, the crazy thing about this, and the reason why I disagree with Elliot Friedman's assessment that momentum doesn't carry over from game to game, is that the Blackhawks actually lost that game. The game in which Jonathan Toews scored twice to force overtime, the Blackhawks ended up losing in overtime. And yet there was not a single moment after that point where I had any doubt the Blackhawks were the better team. Jonathan Toews had finally broken out of his schneid, and the rest of the team answered in a huge way. I believe they won the next game 5-2 to win the series. The next game wasn't even close. And that was the one instance that I felt momentum carried over from game to game. I'm glad I've been yapping like an absolute madman for the past 4 minutes about a random Elliot Friedman take from this offseason, one that he probably never even thought about, because there's 7 minutes left in the second period and nothing seems to be changing. The Blackhawks have 3 shots this period, only 4 shots on goal the entire game. In 34 minutes of play, 4 shots on goal, 0 goals. They're down 3-0. There's a part of me that feels sorry for you guys for having to watch this game with me and for taking time out of your busy Sundays. So again, I want to express how thankful I am for all of you spending your Sunday evenings with me, especially since a lot of this isn't perfectly well planned through. The first intermission activities may have not been the best for all of you, and some things may be rougher on the edges. I'm not used to yapping this much. Everything I do online is mostly scripted by myself, so if I'm rambling a little bit, I appreciate your patience, and really, from the bottom of my heart, it means a lot that you guys join me here, so I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The game 5 was the one where Toews scored twice to force overtime. And from that point on, game 6 and game 7 were never really in doubt. Anaheim kind of came back in Game 7, but that's way after the Blackhawks already had control of that game. And yeah, as I think Empty Machine said earlier in the chat, that series was a lot better than the finals. The Tampa Bay Lightning in 2015 were an extremely young team, and they're a team that roughly had the same identity as the Blackhawks. The one thing they did not have is experience. So when you look back on that team, you had Victor Hedman, who was just starting to enter his prime. You had Nikita Kucherov, this was way before his prime. You had Steven Stamkos. You had one of the best third lines in the NHL. But when you compare them to the Blackhawks could line up with them and skate around them. And the Lightning didn't really have that type of competition in the Eastern Conference on their way to a Stanley Cup. The reason why the Anaheim Ducks were such a difficult series is because they weren't trying to skate around the Blackhawks. They were skating through the Blackhawks. They loved the head-to-head matchup, and they loved matching their grindy players against the Blackhawks superstars and eliminating them in the process. The Lightning were just trying to skate around the Blackhawks. They're an extremely skilled and young team, and the Blackhawks just basically outskilled them. I remember Patrick Kane didn't even need to really show up for that series. He showed up all the way in Game 6 en route to the only 2-goal lead that either one of those two teams had in the Stanley Cup Finals. Patrick Kane showed up with the signature celebration, and the Blackhawks won, but I was never as stressed in the Stanley Cup Finals as I was in that Western Conference Finals. My goodness, I still say this to this day. I don't think there's been a single series, and I'm including 2013 against the Detroit Red Wings. I'm including 2010 en route to the first Stanley Cup Finals and to break the huge drought. I'm including all of those series. I genuinely don't think a single playoff series has taken more years off my life than that series against the Anaheim Ducks in the Western Conference Final. Oh, I love this comment. I have to read this out loud. The Hockey Sun says, I don't know what kind of doctor you are going to be, but I am a psychopath. The reason why I'm laughing is because I misread that as a psychologist. So I was like, oh, are you a psychiatrist? What type of psychologist? And then I had to reread it again in my head. It says a psychopath. Anyways, but am I a psychopath if I downloaded the rival team's app to read their elimination release during the 2015 run? That is some elite hater energy, and I am living for it. That's absolutely brilliant. I should actually do that. That's a great idea. I think that would actually make great content too. If there's anything interesting, be sure to let us know, all right? I'm trusting you with this information. Anything happened in the game? I have this basically on in the background. I'm just reading chat. I'm just having fun with all of you guys. We'll play that blast from the past game, the Agar or whatever IO game in second intermission. We could also watch some content. Are there any videos that you guys want to watch? I'm not trying to be a react channel, but I feel like we're far enough into the live stream where I kind of understand the community that we have for this first stream. And it's frankly bigger than I thought. So I'm willing to listen to what you guys want to do. I mean, if you guys want to react to some hockey content, maybe we can watch some highlights from around the NHL, just some recent games. I think that could be fun. We could do that in the second intermission. You're a you're a rocket surgeon, I assume from Rocket League, eh? The thing is, I'm actually not a gamer. I know I'm starting a gaming channel, but I'm a big fan of storyline games. I think it's pretty easy to tell at this stage how much I respect Johnny Superman. And he's a guy who I really can't overstate the impact that he's had on me as a content creator. Not only because I'm a hockey content creator and he's a hockey content creator, but because he's really inspired me to be more of a storyteller in everything I do. And that's one thing. I'm never going to be quite that level of a storyteller, but one thing 2BC does well is it doesn't matter what content he's doing. He will make it interesting enough that you will want to be a part of it. And this may sound a little bit dramatic, but he's the reason why I'm a Batman fan. I never used to care about any superhero stuff until he played the Arkham City series. And because of that, I started reading some comic books and things like that. But the reason I'm saying all of that is because my gaming content on the second channel is going to be more similar to his style of gaming, where I'm not that good at games. I'm instead going to do a lot of social deduction, which is something he doesn't really do, but also a lot of storyline stuff. talking through situations. Things like Detroit Become Human. I love that game. I've been saving that game. I haven't played it in its entirety. I've watched several playthroughs of it, but I want to play that game on the second channel. Civ 7. If you guys haven't seen... Did I say Buttman? My bad. I'm just fully on the family-friendly train right now. Buttman, yeah. I'm a big fan of the of the Dark Nethers instead of the Dark Knight. Anyways, I don't know if you guys saw, 2BC actually had a sponsored stream from Civ 7. I've played Civ 6 and Civ 5, so I'm probably going to do a Civ 7 series as well. I have one of my real-life friends who wants to stream with me, so maybe we can make that a live stream. Maybe a challenge, like, a 3-day stream where I finish the entire game in its entirety and the weekend it's launched. A lot of that depends on my schedule as a medical student. We'll see what happens. I'm watching this game. Nothing's happening. Frank Nazar skates into the zone, dekes to the outside, cuts back, tries a nice little drop pass to Louis Crevier, a pass to, I don't know who the heck that is. Oh, Colton Dock. Colton Dock's playing with Nazar right now. It's Colton Dock, Nick Foligno, and Frank Nazar. So there's a bit of a line blender going on with Anders Sorensen right now. Stream on Kick. I don't know about that. I do not know about that. Right now, even multi-streaming is a huge deal for me because I am a new streamer. We talked about this already. But I am a new streamer. Even multi-streaming and making sure everything is in order is a huge deal for me. So streaming on Kick is just maybe not in the... Oh, Patrick Maroon almost hit the net. But anyways, I don't think streaming on Kick is really in the agenda, at least in the short term. I'm definitely probably going to stream on YouTube and Twitch. I'm considering streaming on Twitter. And actually, I got a lot of feedback from people when they found out I was doing this live stream last minute. A lot of people asked me why I was not streaming on Twitter. I assure you that is an intentional move. Not only because I believe Twitter is a bit of a dying platform, but also I'm already happy with my growth on Twitter. I've just reached 1,100 followers, and I'm really happy with that. I want to focus on a platform that I think is more sustainable. And I just canceled my premium subscription on Twitter. The requirements for monetization just keep changing on that platform. I keep getting more and more spam, and it's getting frustrating. I'm not moving like full-time to... What's the other website called? The Blue Sky or whatever. I'm not moving full-time to Blue Sky or anything, but I'm just trying to grow my platform on different platforms as well. So I really want to focus on YouTube. I recently hit 334 subscribers, which is a huge milestone for me. I was geeking out about that, and a lot of people don't know this, but subscribing means a lot. Oh my God, it's a miracle. Mrazek didn't let that go in. I'm actually surprised. That was a good save. But in any case, I am one of those new content creators who just constantly has the studio app for YouTube open, whether that is on my phone or on browser. I constantly have that open. Every new subscriber, every new comment I read, I watch and rewatch and refresh all my analytics. I'm just a complete addict about that stuff. So if you subscribe, I will notice and I will slightly geek out. I do that with every subscription. I don't group them together. And of course, a lot of that is because I am new on the platform, and those things probably mean more to me than hypothetically if I had 1,000 subscribers or anything like that. But you subscribing means a lot. So if you guys could take a second to subscribe, it would mean the world to me. And look, I took a month and a half break. I'm not hiding from that fact at all. So the fact that I came back makes growing a lot harder because the YouTube algorithm does not like people who take breaks. And I'm planning to be as consistent as I possibly can be, so subscribing would mean a lot. By the way, is it just me, or did Nick Foligno lose like 15 gears of speed between this year and last? He was never fast, but what is Tyler Bertuzzi doing? Is he hurt? He's favoring his right leg. He went barreling over some Minnesota Wild player. Oh my God. Ethan Del Mastro also toe picking. This game's a joke. I appreciate it, Rowan. That means a lot to me. I really do appreciate it. What happened? Oh, he took. Oh, my bad. I feel bad. I kind of criticized him. He took a puck to the knee. I did not see that. What an Iron Man. He's got all that money weighing him down. Are you talking about Bertuzzi? Or Foligno? Oh yeah, Foligno. That makes sense. He has like $4.5 million contract weighing him down. I understand like a player slowing down when he's like 37 years old or whatever. I just feel like Foligno slowed down a lot more than I expected him to. And the exact opposite has been the case with Ryan Donato, by the way. He was slow as molasses last year. I did not know he had an extra gear, and he's showing that extra gear this year quite a bit. So credit to him. There's no way they stopped the clock with 0.06 seconds left. I was ready with a generational outro to playing a game again, to reacting to some highlights again. But no, they have to blow the whistle with 0.06 seconds left. You know what? I'm gonna quickly refill my water. It's not gonna take me too long. Actually, I have enough water. I'm gonna quickly grab my my energy drink of choice, and I'll be back in 0.6 seconds when the second intermission begins. Nick Foligno's brother is a better player. He's absolutely a better player at this stage. Nick Foligno was a lot better in his prime. But again, keep in mind, the role that Nick Foligno has on this team has nothing to do with his play on the ice. Even if he was a healthy scratch, it would be the exact same thing. He's here to hold on to the captaincy role, to be a puppet. And I don't mean puppet in a derogatory way. I mean a puppet in terms of, you know, being the face in front of the media to be grilled when the team inevitably sucks over the next 2 seasons, and to keep some attention away from Connor Bedard. And as long as meatballs like Jeremy Roenick, legends of the Blackhawks themselves, as long as they don't completely outdo all the effort he's doing, it's going to be quite a bit worth it. I'm actually going to, I'll be right back. Give me 5 minutes, all right? I'm going to use the bathroom. I'm going to play something so that you guys aren't staring at absolutely nothing. I will play Hockey Psychology's video. Let me quickly find it. I'll play Hockey Psychology's video, a quick summary. We're not going to finish this video because it's over 20 minutes long. So I'm going to play this while I'm gone. I'll be back in about 5 to 6 minutes. I'm going to use the bathroom, freshen up a little bit, eat some fruit. I'm going to open up my energy drink, and I'll be right back. But before I do, let me know if you guys can hear the audio. Can you guys hear this?
Week 16 of the NHL season is in the books. We got heavyweight fights going on every other night. The face of the NHL got suspended. Guys are literally choking each other out. And we had a massive 3-way trade involving a bona fide superstar that undoubtedly changes the landscape of the league. Week 16 was absolutely nuts. So let's dive into what really happened during this week of the NHL season. Sunday, Montreal Madness. Let's kick it off with the Sens versus Devils. My God, have the Devils looked brutal lately, and riding a 3-game losing streak, they come out firing by outshooting the Sens 16-2 in the first period. Call these guys Nemo because there's no fin in their game, and the Sens hold on to a 2-1 lead with Forsberg holding down the fort to hand the Devils their 4th straight loss. Afterwards, Chief Keefe calls out his top players saying that they need to be better. Ottawa gets 1 win closer to escaping the Bermuda Triangle of Mid, and Detroit looks to stay right there. No McClellan magic tonight as to Ottinger, and the boys stifled Detroit to win 4-1. Then, Habs versus Rangers. The Bell Center is electric, and we got a heavyweight tilt between Matt Rempe and Arbor Jacki. My goodness, what a scrap. Gotta go with Wi-Fi as the winner there since he lands the takedown. Is he the heavyweight champ right now? I don't know. I'm not sure. Could be Olivier in Columbus. That guy absolutely destroys people. Either way, the hate is there. You still got Habs fans booing Chris Kreider for taking out Carey Price 10 years ago. The game is back and forth all the way through. Slavkovsky ties it late in the third, and then Patrick Laine says, let's go home. He tips it past Jonathan Quick, and the Montreal Madness continues with a massive win over the Rangers to end Sunday. Monday, parade planning. The prophecy of a 2025 Stanley Cup winning Sharks team is fading, but it isn't impossible. A 3-2 lead against the Bruins, things are looking nice, and they proceed to give up 4 straight goals to Boston in the third. Should have seen that one coming, as Boston desperately needs that win as they've only won twice in their past 10. Then, the dog in Colorado gets off his leash and rips one home against the Wild, but The Wild are built with balls. No Spurgeon or Kaprizov in this one, and they shut down the Avs to just 1 goal for the win. Gutsy effort from Minnesota. Then we also get lucky with an early toilet bowl game between Seattle and Buffalo. I can't believe someone actually gets 2 points in this game, but the Kraken are the team to do it while Buffalo continues to slide into the depths of the basement. Sliding in a different way is Vegas. They got St. Louis, who's in a dogfight for that last spot in the West, and they got Vegas on the ropes up 2 with 5 minutes left. So Vegas puts it on red, pulls the tendy, and scores twice with 29 seconds left to tie the game. So we got OT, Jack Eichel on a platter, 2-on-1 for the game winner, and he misses a wide open net. That's a Mark Andrews special, and he is just devastated on the bench afterwards. To rub salt in the wound, St. Louis avoids the choke and wins in a shootout. Then, over on the island, Barzal gets apparently caught by bad lip readers saying how embarrassing it is that the Coliseum is empty. Lou is fuming seeing that, but he takes a deep breath after seeing Bo Horvat put up 2 to beat a red-hot Columbus team. Meanwhile, the Leafs and Lightning are getting after it on Amazon Prime. Matty Nyes is a Tampa Bay assassin. He gets another 3-point night, and you got Austin Matthews trying the Michigan. There you go. The skill guys are flying, feeling good. All is well in Leafland as they beat Tampa to keep the parade plans alive. In Chicago, it's the return of Mr. Anderson for Carolina. He looked decent in his return, but Aho helps the Bedard's pursuit for the basement with the OT winner. How nice of him to contribute. Then the Penguins are in Carolina, where it was reported that GM Kyle Dubas was ready for a fire sale of the team. Dubas has made some questionable moves that has undoubtedly made him the #1 contributor to the hashtag Save Sid movement. It is looking bleak in Pittsburgh, and he's a big reason why. Sid, though, he ain't having none of it. He tips one home, and the Penguins win big over the Kings 5-1. Finally, the Jets are in Mormon territory, and Utah still legally can't get their team name. Logan Cooley is sick of having no identity, so he no-look and plays peekaboo to go top shelf as Utah rolls over Winnipeg to end Monday. Tuesday, superstar drama. The Atlantic Division is a wild mess, and the Habs are right in the thick of it. Canadians versus the Lightning, and shocker, Nikita Kucherov, smoking a pancake, never even looks like he's breaking a sweat out there as he buries to extend his point streak to 10 games. Tampa up by 2 look a little bit comfortable, but the Habs have heart. The kids battle back, and Jake Evans blows the roof off of the Bell Center with a late go-ahead goal. The Habs win their 2nd in a row and continue to surprise everyone. What's even more surprising, though, is seeing Matt Rempe go backhand shelf. Turns out the tree has some mitts on him, and this game had a lot of heat. Look at this. Tkachuk runs into Igor. Chaos breaks out. Everyone in MSG holds their breath as Igor is in discomfort. Then this guy just says, "Fuck it, I'm going after Tkachuk," and starts chucking him. It's complete madness at MSG, and I love it. The Rangers are slowly starting to come back to life as they shut out the Sens 5-0 and are right back in the mix. What about Detroit? Well, they're just still so painfully mid. Rasmus Ristolainen gets the OT winner for Philly, and Detroit loses their 3rd straight as the McClellan magic is starting to wear off. It does seem like that magic is starting to find its way over to Nashville as they're heating up, but the prophecy is too damn strong. Celebrini snipes one to start the game, and the Sharks rally to go up 5-1 at the start of the 2nd. This one is over. That's what the prophecy of the 2025 future Cup champs would tell you, but the Preds score twice before the end of the 2nd. Then they throw on a little U2 in the dressing room, and they storm all the way back to beat the Sharks 7-5. I hate to say it, but I think the prophecy may just be a crock of shit. Then the Hurricanes kept the ball rolling by keeping the Stars to 1 goal and having Jesper Kotkaniemi double dip the chip for the win. All while the Panthers get lucky enough to play the Ducks for their scheduled 2 points. Of course, the biggest news of Tuesday was that the NHL decided to suspend both Tyler Myers and Connor McDavid 3 games for their cross-checks. The entire league seemed to disagree with this decision and length, and honestly, I agree. Maybe 1 or 2 games, but what a complete fumble from the league to have both of these players suspended.
All right, guys, I'm back. Can you guys hear me? Do 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 do. Perfect. Welcome in, Anthony. Good to see you. I actually came back at a perfect time. You know those times where you're in the bathroom and you never really know if you finish? I guess I am the real Buttman. I was talking about being a Batman fan, but I guess I am the real one. Anyways, I came back at the perfect time because hockey psychology is talking about the McDavid suspension. Now, I'm going to put myself out there because I mentioned previously that my two favorite podcasts are 32 Thoughts, obviously, but also The Sheet with Jeff Merrick. And one thing that Jeff Merrick said that I tend to agree with is he believes that this was a completely fair suspension. Now, I want to point something out. A lot of us who like hockey are also fans of other sports. The reality is hockey is not as much a mainstream sport in America as it is in Canada, where there are plenty of hockey-only fans. They're much more fans of all team sports, all city sports, for example. So if you're a Blackhawks fan, you're probably also a Bears fan, and you probably have one. You're probably a fan of either the Cubs or the Sox, and you're probably a fan of the Bulls. You don't need to be a diehard fan of everything, but a lot of times you are a fan of other sports in the city if you are a hockey fan in America. The reason I bring that up is the same people complaining that the NHL dropped the ball in suspending Connor McDavid for a clear suspendable reason. A lot of people who are criticizing the NHL are criticizing them from a marketing perspective, not from the fact that Connor McDavid didn't deserve a suspension. They believe that because he's Connor McDavid, the NHL should cut him some slack because he sells tickets, because he is marketable. And they even went as far as to say that they believe that Connor McDavid should boycott all the marketing stuff that the NHL is trying to make him do or to teach the NHL a lesson. Now, here's what I would say to all of you people. It's the same people criticizing the National Football League for showing favoritism towards Patrick Mahomes, who, by the way, is the logical equivalent in the NFL to what Connor McDavid is to the NHL. You could talk about, historic value of McDavid versus Mahomes, but the reality is Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the NFL right now, and Connor McDavid is the best player in the NHL right now. And everybody who is not a Kansas City Chiefs fan, everybody who's not a Kansas City Chief fan, if I can speak English, everybody criticizes the league for showing supposed favoritism towards Patrick Mahomes, who, by the way, is losing to the Buffalo Bills by 1 point. And let's hope, and I repeat, let's hope that score holds. But in any case, if you're criticizing the NFL for calling phantom unsportsmanlike conduct and phantom roughing the passer calls when Patrick Mahomes is even breathed on, you can't then turn around and pretend like you're outraged that the NHL is treating McDavid just like they would any other player. The same thing happened about 2 seasons ago. Austin Matthews cheap-shotted and cross-checked Rasmus Dahlin. He got 2 games. That is the precedent. It doesn't matter if Nazem Kadri does it. It doesn't matter if Patrick Maroon does it. It doesn't matter if Austin Matthews does it. The actual action is a 2-game suspension. However, as is the case with, for example, McDavid, or I just mentioned Nazem Kadri, a guy with a lot of history, that 2-game suspension is probably going to be elevated to 3. This is not the first run-in that Connor McDavid has had with the Department of Player Safety, and because of that reason, he gets an extra game. Now, I'm not going to push back too hard if you believe that because this is the first stick infraction that McDavid has had that has led to a hearing, that maybe they should have held at a 2-game suspension. I have no pushback on that. I personally am comfortable with the 3-game suspension because I know for a fact that if this was a player, any player with the exact same rap sheet, and the exact same action of cross-checking a guy in the mouth out of anger at a missed call, I don't care who the player is, they would be getting the same, if not a worse suspension. It would be a 3 to 4 game suspension. Just because it's Connor McDavid doesn't mean it should be 1 or 2. The Hockey Sun says, on some level, I think McDavid showing some attitude towards the league would help the players take some ownership over their role in growing the league. I would push back on that only on one point, and that is, I think it's two separate thoughts. One of them being the NHL is dropping the ball consistently with marketing. And we can talk about how guys like the hockey psychology, by the way, guys like Johnny Superman, guys like Johnny Hockey are all getting attacked monetarily by the National Hockey League, even though they all do free promo. The reason why I'm such a diehard NHL fan is because of 2BC Productions, because of Nasher, and because of Bacon. That's why I'm into the National Hockey League. And the NHL is dropping the ball in the way they're marketing because they're attacking the one free promotion that they're getting. They're also dropping the ball with all the TV deals. CHSN is only the tip of the iceberg. It's probably the worst case around the NHL, but it's far from the only one. I believe the league is dropping the ball in all of those ways. I don't believe it's dropping the ball in the way they punish actions like this. And a lot of the pushback that I would get on this, I assume, are the same that I see online, and that is, all of this could be avoided if you miss a call. I want to point something out. I don't care what sport it is. I don't care what league it is. You're going to have missed calls. And keep in mind, this is not a Stanley Cup Final Game 7. This is a random regular season game, all right? So if the Department of Player Safety is going to push back on the idea of vigilante justice, you better hope they don't pull out the same suspension in the playoffs, where logically it would be a one-game suspension to be equivalent, but at least be happy that they're not taking one of the most marketable stars out of the playoffs. This is the time to send that point. And another point I would make about the idea that, all of this could be avoided if they just made the call. You're talking about two of the most respected referees in the NHL. You're not talking about Tim Peel and his stupid little podcast with Jeremy Roenick, where he just runs his mouth for content and hopes that something sticks. That's not the kind of guy you're talking about. You're not talking about the same Tim Peel that wanted to call a penalty on the Nashville Predators just because of a power trip. That's not the kind of referees we're talking about. We're talking about two of the most respected referees in the National Hockey League. I don't care who you are or what league you work in, you will make mistakes. I make mistakes in a very high stakes medical session, and I constantly need my superiors to tell me, hey, look, ringside, you have no clue what you're talking about. Go redo this. I don't care what you do in your own respective field, you make mistakes too. And being a referee in the National Hockey League is inherently very difficult. And I try my best not to criticize refereeing because it's a very hard job. There's some cases where I differ from that logic. For example, criticizing Tim Peel for running his mouth. But Wes McCauley is one of the most respected NHL referees, and anybody misses calls. We cannot create a precedent where just because a call is missed, no matter how blatant it is, and I do believe it was a blatant missed call because Connor Garland had his arms bear hugging McDavid to prevent him from scoring. I believe it was a missed call. Does not justify the vigilante justice that came after. They suck big time. There's not a single major league in the world where the referees don't subjectively suck. And I think the NHL has a major referee issue. I just do not believe that Wes McCauley is a part of that issue. I think we talk about players growing the game. Wes McCauley has grown the game. Every call he makes, and most of them are accurate, by the way, but even beyond that, he's done a great job growing the game with his personality. We can't just be living in a world where no matter who the referee is that's missing calls, you can just take your anger out on the ice by cross-checking a dude in the mouth. That cannot be the league. And maybe that's a hot take from my perspective. Maybe it's not, but that's just my personal take. I wanted to do some cool stuff in the second intermission. For those of you who want to stick around after this game, I do believe I will have some time to do that. We can watch some NHL highlights. We'll see how many people stick around at that point. Again, please, and this is something that will just mean a lot to me, please consider subscribing. For those of you who don't know, and I mentioned this previously, but we do have some new viewers now. Growing is extremely hard in YouTube if you take a break. YouTube likes consistency, and YouTube is an algorithm-based platform where the more you push a certain type of content, whether through clickbait or through original ideas, whatever the case may be, the more your channel is going to grow. This is not like Twitch, where the entire growth algorithm sucks. This is not like Twitter, where you can pay to get to the top. This is a more organic, algorithm-based platform. And the best way to show your support is not by donating or anything like that. It's just by subscribing. It's free to you. It means a lot to me. I'm not going to say that you need to turn the bell notification on or anything like that. If you want to do that to not miss any future uploads and any future live streams, of course, feel free to go ahead. But subscribing would mean the world to me. In all of my videos, the majority of people who watch and who enjoy and who comment are not subscribed. So if you just subscribe, it means it costs you nothing, and it means a lot to me. There are significant YouTuber milestones that come when you reach 500 subscribers, and there's significant YouTube milestones that come when you hit 1,000. And right now we're at 354, so we are quite a ways away. But that's the journey that we're on right now, right? I'm going to try to... Oh, Ryan Donato was a huge hit. I didn't see who he got, but my goodness, that dude face planted. A shot on goal is turned away by Gustafsson. Recovered by Philip Kurashev. Kurashev back to the point. Seth Jones over to Patrick Maroon, who loses the puck. But in any case, subscribing would mean the world to me. I really do appreciate it. And Ryan Donato is kneeling next to Philip Gustafsson, wondering who on the Minnesota Wild he just face planted. Whatever it is a tremendous... oh, great. That was called a penalty. Alex said, Chad, did I miss anything? Or did Rinkside just self-promo in the app? No, he didn't miss anything. That's basically all I do. Let's see this. Okay, yeah. Blackhawks are going to the power play, because Jacob Middleton just blatantly cross-checked Ryan Donato 3 times in the back. So now is the first chance. The Blackhawks have to get off the schneid. The Blackhawks get set up. Bedard over to Jones. Shoots, scores! He scores! And he continues his tremendous recent pace of leading the Blackhawks in points. That's 7 points in his last 5 games. Seth Jones makes no mistake early on in the power play. And under a minute into the third period, it's 3-1 Blackhawks. Did somebody say comeback? Did somebody say comeback? The shutout is gone. Gustafsson let it in. That's a brilliant shot by Seth Jones, by the way. Trade value skyrocketing. Absolutely skyrocketing, Carter. Absolutely. He's 1 goal. He's 1 goal closer to Dallas. 3-1 Blackhawks. Alex, this is negative energy that I'm sensing from you. I am a positive guy, all right? I am a positive guy. This is great vibes. I am so happy that I even get the chance to do a live stream in my schedule. I am just exuding confidence. 7 shots on goal. That's 7 more than I would have if I was on the ice. The Blackhawks are doing great. 3-1 is a great deficit. It's the worst lead in hockey, as Johnny would say. So, I thought Bedard just got away with a penalty there. But anyways, let's see if they're able to at least put together a nice performance in the third period. Seth Jones got them off early with a nice little goal. So let's see if... great pass through Bedard. I mean, Bedard was on the left goal line. He held onto the puck, and I thought, okay, what is he going to do? I thought he was going to try to skate into the high slot and try to make magic happen from there. But instead, he found a brilliant... Look at that pass through all 4 penalty killers, and Seth Jones made no mistake. It's a brilliant primary assist from Bedard. He gets his point, and that's basically all that I care about from this team. It's Bedard points and the standings, and both are looking good right now because the Blackhawks are probably not going to win, as Alex correctly pointed out. We're reaching 18 minutes left in the third period as the Chicago Blackhawks ice the puck, and a defensive zone faceoff is coming. Let me quickly check to see how many people are currently watching. 9 concurrent viewers. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. I understand you guys have better places to be. I really do appreciate you sticking here. Let me give you a quick NFL update before this face-off happened. Oh, the face-off just happened. All right, I'll give you the update right after. Just so you know, there's still 15 minutes left in the game. The fourth quarter just started in the Bills-Chiefs game, and it is a one-point game. So now you guys don't have to click off the stream to find that out. Philip, Connor Bedard in Zach Bogosian's face with a nice little cross check. That's some captaincy material right there, isn't it? Trying to make this game a little bit more exciting than it is. The Blackhawks are showing some fire early in the third period, the kind of fire that they didn't show in the first two periods. We'll see if it's too little, too late, or if they're able to pull through with a nice final frame to make this game competitive. Oh, Bogosian grabbed his stick. That's why he's so pissed. Good on Connor Bedard for fighting back, by the way. It's great to see your young superstar not take this shtick from everybody else in the league. Alex says, I can watch this or I can just play FC 25. You play FC 25 or NHL 25 because NFL is getting boring. I wonder how many people in this community are going to want to make an EASHL team or a pro league team on FC 25 or NHL 25. I feel like that could be a good community-based thing to do. A great stick handle into the zone. Nazar to Seth Jones, who goes barreling into Gustafsson, but he makes a great glove save. Seth Jones almost went 2 for 2 in the first 3 minutes of this period. That one had a chance to go low glove, but Gustafsson made a great save. You have one on NHL. That's great. When do you think we get the first Bedard fight? I don't think it's far away, man. Second City, I really don't think Bedard is far away from fighting. I think if he finds the right opponent, he's going to drop the gloves. If you remember, Zach Bolduc in the preseason and Connor Bedard really went after each other. I thought that could be his first fight, even though it's the preseason. But I think Bedard is too smart to drop the gloves when it's not the right idea. But one of these days, it wouldn't shock me to see him drop the gloves. Cherry Cola. That's absolutely brilliant. You want to see Nick and his brother fight? I mean, that would make the game a lot more interesting. I'm not sure if they'd actually do that. You like seeing families split apart, Alex? Is that what you're saying? I'm just playing. That would be a pretty compelling fight, though. I wonder who would win. They're both kind of similar profiles of players, especially at this stage in their careers. Nick Foligno definitely lost 5 or 6 steps compared to what he was in his prime. Marcus Foligno is more of a middle 6 / bottom 6 grinder anyways, so it would be a pretty compelling fight. I would like to watch that. Alex says F yeah. That's great. Blackhawks legend Ryan Hartman dancing into the zone, gets it in on Mrazek, and Mrazek covers up. That is a huge save because the Blackhawks had momentum, and Patrick Maroon just drops. Who is that on the ground for Minnesota? Patrick Maroon just went after him. He never dropped his gloves. He just barreled him into the ice, into the boards, and then into the ice. I think that's Jacob Middleton who's laughing. I think Maroon may be going off here because I don't think you're allowed to do that. Bedard versus McKenna in 3 years. How about Bedard and McKenna in 3 years? I mean, if the Blackhawks lose the lottery this year and they fall to number 4, they still could get one of the top 3 forwards, and then maybe some lottery luck will be in their favor, and they may win it with McKenna. Why not Bedard and McKenna in 3 years? It is Middleton, yeah. I mean, objectively, I think that should be a penalty. I'm watching this game on mute because I'm too busy listening to myself yap. So it took me a second to figure out who was on the ice. I think that should be a penalty. That's roughing. He just strangled him onto the ice. Oh, 2 minutes each unsportsmanlike? I thought that was roughing, I'll be honest. Compromise. McKenna and Bedard fight during Blackhawks training camp. If they were both on the Blackhawks and they dropped the gloves during training camp, do you understand the outrage that would happen from the coaching staff? The coaching staff would be so pissed. They'd be mad at the veterans in the locker room for not preventing it from happening. They would be mad at McKenna and Bedard for actually doing that in training camp. They would be mad. They would be so angry. But anyways, 4-on-4 hockey, which gives Bedard more space to enter the zone cleanly, more empty area on the ice. And now the Wild the other way. Calder favorite, but never winner. Brock Faber enters the zone. Kirill Kaprizov takes a double team, passes it back to the point, a terrible pass taken away from Bedard, showing off some defensive acumen. Now here comes Lucas Reichel entering the zone, wheeling and dealing. A bad pass taken away by Eriksson Ek, but Bedard gets it back. They're really not on the same page. Bedard and Reichel just don't have chemistry together. It's the line blender in this game that's kind of gotten this game moving, but it's also the same line blender that's left these two with no chemistry, and they're not really on the same page. And now Frank Nazar onto the ice with a minute left on the 4-on-4. Carter said, I think Maroon's fight is still bruised from last fight. Didn't want to drop the gloves. That would make sense. It's just weird to see him just strangle a player instead of dropping him. Great pass. Del Mastro, toe drag, shoots, save, rebound, scores! Frankie Nazar and Ryan Donato and Zach Bogosian have a hugging match on the floor on the ice, but Frank Nazar with a brilliant play to get the puck to Del Mastro with a great toe drag. Del Mastro gets the puck on net, off the pad rebound. Frank Nazar scores. It's 3-2. Where are you now, Alex? Stop doubting this team. The young guys have it going for them. And Ryan Donato, I don't know what happened there. I was too busy jumping up in my seat. Frank Nazar continues his hot streak, and with 15:44 left in this game, the Blackhawks are not out of it. Look at this play from Frank Nazar. Gathering the puck, a brilliant backhand pass away from pressure, and Ethan Del Mastro in his second game this season with the confidence as a more defensive defenseman to pull off that toe drag, to shoot low off the pad, and Nazar buries it on the rebound. How did this game suddenly become fun? You are absolutely right, Second City. I can barely breathe. My voice is going, but my goodness, the Blackhawks have found a way to turn this game around, and I could not be more happy about it. Ryan Donato was battling with Bogosian the entire time. If anything, Bogosian should have probably been aware that the Blackhawks were outnumbering the Wild on the other side of the ice. Donato does his job. Give him an assist, even if he didn't touch the puck. Donato occupied half of the Wild defensemen on that play, giving Frank Nazar the opportunity to bury it, to make it, to cut the deficit to only one goal. Donato will sit in the box for his troubles, but that's very well worth it. What a game. What a play by Frank Nazar. I know he scored the goal, but he also absolutely created the goal. I mean, from the right half boards to turn and find Del Mastro through traffic on the backhand, that's brilliance from Frank Nazar. That's the kind of play that gets you excited about the potential. And again, I want to point out, this was not even a pick that the Blackhawks had. You traded away Kirby Dach for the privilege. Seth Jones open in the high slot, and his shot is blocked. And just like that, the Blackhawks were that close. We're that close from tying this game. Completely outplaying the Minnesota Wild in this frame. What a toe drag. What a toe drag from Del Mastro. A nice little primary assist. And Frank Nazar gets his third goal of the season. Third goal of his career, I think, actually. Let me just double check that. Nazar stats. You visit often. Of course I do. I love Frank Nazar. He gets his third career goal, his second goal this season, his third career goal. Of course, he had his first goal on his first shot in his first game in the National Hockey League, and that was last year. But he gets his third career goal, and what a goal it was. The Blackhawks made this game interesting as a 4-on-4 comes to an end. Yes, Carter, he got a goal last season against the Carolina Hurricanes in his first career game. And here comes Connor Bedard, cutting in. Bedard, pass, Maroon goes to the backhand and he can't bury it, but what patience shown by Connor Bedard. I frankly think he should have shot it because, I mean, he has a higher chance of scoring than Maroon does, but that's brilliant vision by Connor Bedard. And again, the Blackhawks are knocking on the door. They're making this game interesting. Let's see what Kershev has on defense. He allows a shot on goal. Mrazek shrugs it off. And now here's Patrick Maroon. Finds Lucas Reichel, dumps it in. He didn't have really any other option. The referee tumbles in the corner. Del Mastro on the left point. Back. A shot. Maroon recovers behind the net. Kershev forechecking. And a trip is called. The Blackhawks have completely turned this game around. And I believe they're going on the power play. Yes, they are going to be going on the power play now. And with 14:06 left in the game, as the Chiefs just scored, did they? Yep, they just scored. It's okay. The Buffalo Bills are still only down by 6. This game is not over, but the Blackhawks are making this game interesting. Connor Bedard almost finding Patrick Maroon. Goes to his backhand. I thought he had room 5-hole, but Gustafsson was able to recover to make the save. Let's take a look from this end. He had room 5-hole. He just shot directly into the pads. Alex, this is what happens when you doubt the team. Did I not tell you to be positive? Uncle Ringside over here telling you how to act. The Blackhawks, the Wild clear the zone to start the Blackhawks power play. What else is new? Let's see what Seth Jones can do as a power play quarterback. It's one area of his game that's not the strongest. Teuvo Teravainen, a nice little entry. Nick Foligno back to Seth Jones via Connor Bedard. Bertuzzi back to Bedard. Bedard circling back. Bedard in the left circle. Bedard back to Seth Jones. Less passing, more shooting, please. Seth Jones again from Bedard. Bedard whiffs on a one-timer. It's okay, Betsy. They're going to get the puck back. Bertuzzi, great work on his knees to get the puck back to the point. That's phenomenal. If the Blackhawks score, remember that play from Tyler Bertuzzi. Seth Jones gets it back to Bedard. Bedard playing pitch and catch with Jones. Back to Teravainen. Teravainen down. Oh, Bertuzzi almost got a stick on that to get it into the wide open net. Seth Jones walking in, shoots, and that's saved. And he's unable to keep the puck in, and Bedard misses the rebound as well. Sorry, Uncle, love you. He better. Oh, Bedard takes a huge hit to make a play. Teravainen, why are you dancing in the middle of the ice? Do something with it. Teravainen, cross ice. Bedard shoots, and that's kicked aside. I think by Bertuzzi. It went off Bertuzzi's skate, I believe. I thought that was bookmarked for the bottom corner. Teravainen shot, and Gustafsson makes a save. Great little pass from Bedard over to Teravainen. He doesn't overthink it. He gets it on net. And with 25 seconds remaining in the power play, the Blackhawks are putting on the pressure, only down 1 goal. That pass along the goal line from Nick Foligno to Bertuzzi almost connected. It just went through his skates. Good back pressure from whoever the Wild defenseman was. And then Bedard, yeah, that's a good block by Brock Faber. Nice little Calder on Calder. Violence over there. Bedard nailing Faber in the shins with a shot. 25 seconds left. We're going to see the second unit here with Reichel. Reichel who wins the faceoff. Bedard is staying out there with the second unit. Kurashev crashing the net. Bedard racing to recover. He does. Bedard spinning. Let's do my best Chris Voster's impersonation. Bedard! Anyways, Nazar. Oh my goodness. This is why you need a second power play quarterback. I don't know where Martinez was. That wasn't even a line change. I don't know what he was doing outside of the zone. That was like a Seth Jones moment from 2022. Remember when Patrick Kane was like, where the F are you going? I don't know where Alec Martinez was going. He was just chilling outside of the zone. He started off with the second unit. That wasn't even a line change. So I don't know what he was doing. Don't say that name. I apologize. I apologize for ruining your viewing experience. Oh, this cherry cola Celsius is phenomenal. If you're too young, don't drink an energy drink, please. I don't endorse this stuff. My play-by-play has unironically been better than Voster's. Boys, I can tell that my play-by-play is struggling, so that actually means a lot. I know Voster's was terrible. It's okay. He's a very nice guy, and that's why I never criticize him publicly. Because he seemed like such a sweetheart. It's hard for me to see like a guy like that get piled on because it's not his fault that he was given the job. I thought he was actually pretty decent on trial basis in 2022. He just was never the best choice for replacing Pat Foley in a full-time role. I don't know what the Blackhawks were thinking. That just makes me more upset about the CHSN debacle. Everything about this team off the ice has been terrible. From the decision to hire Voster's. Look, I don't endorse abuse, and Voster's got a lot of verbal abuse from the fan base, but like, who are you supposed to blame? Whose decision was it to hire him in the first place? Everybody knew that was not the right decision to move on from Pat Foley. Yeah, he's very nice. And by the way, I think he's still in the commentary business. I believe he was commentating on the Olympics or something. He's still a good commentator. He's just not a hockey commentator. Being a hockey commentator is a very specific skill set. You can look at, for those of you who are fans of soccer, there are a lot of great commentators who just cannot commentate that sport. And then there's just one Peter Drury. When you have somebody of that caliber, you can't just replace him with XYZ commentator. That's not going to work. When you have a guy of Pat Foley's caliber, you can't just replace him with a commentator and hope that they can develop into a hockey commentator. The speed of the sport, the inflection of the words, what people want to hear from you, the emotions are completely different than sports like golf and swimming and things that are more casual. And Vosters has that type of experience. It's not his fault that he failed, but he gave it his best shot. It just wasn't meant to be. He specialized in baseball and volleyball. And by the way, speaking of baseball, that's a perfect example of how some commentators are great in some sports and just not good in others. Joe Buck was one of the least enjoyable commentators to watch in the NFL before he was put on baseball duty. And I kid you not, watching Joe Buck commentate on baseball was an absolute pleasure. And I think that experience, especially in the World Series in 2016, made him a better commentator in general. And now he's much more of a football commentator as well. But you can't just expect one commentator to cross-platform that easily. It's just not going to work, especially in a market as big as Chicago is for hockey. And Chris Vosters was never going to replace Pat Foley. That was just a ridiculous notion to begin with. A lot of Chicago fans seem like angry people. Do I sound like an angry person? That's the ultimate question. Reason I ask is because I don't actually live in Chicago. I wonder if I still have the Chicago energy in me, though. I'm so happy for Frank Nazar, though, man. I'm a prospect guy at heart. So, I mean, I get excited if the Blackhawks win, and I get excited if they lose because of the tank. But I'm kind of a little bit nonchalant about that. But watching Frank Nazar do well, just from the bottom of my heart, gives me happiness. There are very few things in sports, especially in Chicago sports right now, since everyone sucks, very few things that make me happier than Frank Nazar thriving. And ever since he's been put on the first line, he's had a lot of good moments. I'm really happy to see that. As Jason Dickinson dumps it in, and it's taken away by Brock Faber. I think Eddie leaving into more of a national role was kind of the beginning of the end for that duo. And I think Eddie's son, Nick, is also a very good color commentator in his own right. But ever since Eddie left for more of a national role, and he absolutely deserved it, I don't think the Blackhawks ever figured out how to get a dream team broadcast team from that point on. And at that stage, especially with the Blackhawks rebuilding, and obvious stuff off the ice. What a move by Bedard. What a move by Bedard to enter the zone. What a shot. And that save by Gustafsson. My goodness, Bedard is turning on the magic right now, doing everything to get the Blackhawks back in this game. But what I was talking about is, ever since Eddie left for a national role, I really thought the Blackhawks never figured out how to get the dream team back in the studio after that point. I have a lot of respect for both Rick Ball and Panger, Darren Pang, sorry, the name just escaped me. I have a lot of respect for them, but nobody's ever going to come close to that duo. Panger's a great color commentator, but he's not Eddie Olczyk. Oh, you're talking about the son, right? Nick Edzo, I think, works with Seattle, I believe. No? Nick Olczyk. Remember when they had Sharp doing games for a while? Yeah, I mean, Sharpie, I'm never going to be mad at Sharpie. I don't think he was the best color commentator in the world. He had some national stuff too. I do think Panger is a little bit more insightful than he is, but I'm never going to hate Sharpie in any role that they bring him in for. John Forsland was available. Yeah, here's the thing. I think the Blackhawks did that intentionally. I think they intentionally wanted a non-hockey commentator to be, because they had some sort of delusion that as the team grows, the commentator will grow into the role too. I think that was all intentional, and I think that was all BS. A lot of stuff around CHSN and a lot of Blackhawks related stuff that's not directly the product on the ice has been terrible, and that has changed how angry the fans are about the product as a whole. I believe that all of that stuff has an impact on how impatient the Blackhawks fan base has been. And they have nobody to blame but themselves, because when you are rebuilding, you need to give your fans a reason to tune in. And the Blackhawks have done the exact opposite. Even the few fans who want to tune in are having trouble doing so, because last year the commentary was impossible to listen to. This year, it's impossible to even get a stream. They wanted to cheap out, and it's unacceptable to do. I mean, you had all the success in the world for 15 years. You had a dynasty. The point of having a dynasty is that you accept that you will have to rebuild and you will have difficult times later. I think it's ridiculous that they went down the route they did, cheaping out not only with the commentary, but with every other thing along the way. It's just unacceptable. And that's why I try not to be too loud as we look at a collision with Mrazek in the crease. I try not to be too loud with disgruntled fans, because I understand their frustration. Even if you're mad at Kyle Davidson irrationally, there is some rationality to it. As Kaprizov takes a shot and why is Mrazek backwards? What is happening? Did he cover the puck? He managed to cover the puck backwards. What a save by Mrazek as a Wild almost score right off the bat on their power play with 8:46 left. But anyways, a lot of the fans who irrationally hate on Kyle Davidson and irrationally hate on Anders Sorensen and call out Bedard for random things for no reason, a lot of them don't realize that they're frustrated for a different reason. Oh, Vlasic bumped into Mrazek, flipping him around the wrong way, and Mrazek still squeezed his legs together and somehow made the save. What a save. Buffalo touchdown. The Bills are winning. Screw Patrick Mahomes. Oh, okay. This game's going to be interesting. Blackhawks clear the zone. And now here come the Minnesota Wild the other way. Kirill Kaprizov, what a takeaway. I think that was Seth Jones. Great takeaway by Seth Jones on Kirill Kaprizov at the blue line, forcing him right back out. And here comes Matthew Boldy right back in. Vlasic gives him a nice little shove against the boards. Nazar trying to clear. Will it get out? No, it will not. How did that not go in? I thought that hit the back of the net. Did Mrazek somehow save that? He was way out of position on Boldy's one-timer. Now here is Matt Zuccarello. Zuccarello on the right circle, waiting, showing patience. The rest of the team is shifting positions. Matthew Boldy in the high slot. Waits, Zuccarello. What a block by Alex Vlasic. Alex Vlasic just saved a goal. If the Blackhawks go on to win this game, remember that block, because that net was wide-ass open. It was completely open, and Zuccarello had a wide-open net. Alex Vlasic with a tremendous save, and what a clear there by Nick Foligno, who finally gets off on a well-deserved line change. Awkward Human asks, will you keep doing streams for games? So I talked about this a little bit in the last video. I'll get to that in a second. I'm so sorry. Seth Jones with a tremendous clear to alleviate the pressure. But anyways, I talked about this in the last video, and unfortunately, my schedule is both extremely busy with being in medical school, but also extremely unpredictable. There are very few weeks that I can plan ahead for. I know what my schedule is like this week, but I have no clue what it's going to be like next week. I have a brand new rotation starting then. And the reality is I can't really plan ahead too much. So the thing is, I may be doing more streams for games. I won't do it every game. I won't even do it close to every game. But when I do it, it's going to be a bit of a last second thing. And it's going to be more casual, kind of like the way this stream is. I'll be doing a lot of yapping, just kind of chilling with the community that we have here, kind of showing my appreciation along the way. I don't expect to do anything more than that, really, because of my schedule and because I think you guys deserve to spend some time behind the scenes and hear me in my true unfettered form. So if I do streams, it will probably be last minute streams, kind of like I did today, where I announced yesterday, hey, guess what? We're doing a watch along today. Come join. We'll talk about the Blackhawks. We'll talk about random thoughts on life and on different sports and on hockey in general. And we'll play games and we'll have a good time, especially when I release the second channel. We're probably going to be doing a lot more live streams. It's just hard for me to plan ahead. So if you guys want to join the Discord, if you guys, of course, want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's the best way to not miss any of that content in the future. Fair enough. Always love your analysis. Way better than the commentators. Why are you guys glazing me today? I feel so special. I feel like ever since I posted a clip on Twitter where I talked about me being in medical school, and all of a sudden everyone thinks I'm some genius, untouchable person. I feel like everybody liked to hate on me before that, but I really do appreciate the kind words. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy Sunday evening to spend some time with me, and thank you for being a fan of the content as well, the more scripted content that I have on the YouTube channel. It means the world to me, and all of these positive comments really do fuel me, so I do appreciate it. Thank you very much, Awkward Human. Now we have Martinez giving the puck away. Oh, another penalty? The Blackhawks are going back to the power play. It looks like Jacob Lauko took a penalty. I didn't see which penalty it is, but down 3-2 with just over 5 minutes left, I do believe. The Blackhawks have another chance at the power play. Oh, that's a clear hold. That's easy. Second City, you're the best. Don't worry, we'll get the guys from the rink in the next stream to bring you down to earth. I cannot wait. I would love to just sit down with the dudes from the rink. I don't care, even if it's on their platform, even if I'm pushing some viewership over to their channel. I don't care. I just want to sit down and just hear them talk. I'm not dedicated enough to that goal to watch their podcast, but I just want to have a conversation with them and understand why they're so angry all the time, why they're so strong on all their opinions, and why they're so into confirmation bias. It's funny because there's one dude on the rink who's the stats guy, right? And he's usually actually the most tolerable guy. I'm not going to call him out by name because that would imply who the rest of the people are. But everybody else loves getting in arguments from the rink. And the majority of the people who, whenever I post clips on my Twitter, the majority of people have natural, normal discourse in the comment section of all of those clips. A lot of people agree. A lot of people disagree. A lot of people are pro-Davidson. People are anti-Davidson. I'm somewhere in between. I love all of the discourse that happens. And then usually there's some person who insults me personally. And then I'll click their name. And of course, they'll have the rink in their description, in their profile. And it's funny because whenever I respond to them, and I try not to respond to them anymore, but especially when I was starting off, I had a lot of self-esteem issues that were linked to how many positive comments I got. I'm doing a lot better with that, but whenever somebody called me out personally, I felt the need to respond. I felt the need to respond with logic and with facts, but I felt the need to respond nonetheless. And it's funny because whenever they would continue the argument, it's clear they had no idea what they were talking about. I would mention something like, oh, this player, like Lukas Reichel, for example, he has one of the highest goals/assists over time on ice in the NHL, something along those lines. And you could tell they had no idea because they would say things like, oh, that makes no sense because he's not putting up goals. But then I'd be like, oh, but nobody else is putting up goals. Why are you only criticizing Lukas Reichel? I'll get to this point in a second because the Blackhawks just entered the zone on the power play. Connor Bedard sends it over to Ryan Donato, who's now on the first power play unit. Donato back to Jones. Jones along the blue line. Back to Teuvo Teravainen, and the Blackhawks are fully set up. Teravainen over to Donato. It's a bad pass. It's a bad pass, and the Minnesota Wild are able to clear the zone as a result. That's just a bad pass from Teravainen. If you're making a pass down to the goal line, it needs to find a stick. You can't just pass it between two players and hope for the best there. But anyways, the rink guys would always argue and wait for their stats guy to show up to the argument to justify it. They would say things like, oh, you're bringing up random stats that have no relevance. You're bringing up like random obscure stats that nobody cares about. And I'm talking about like goals and assists and expected goals. Those are the three most common stats that you could possibly talk about. And they would just like insult me personally and wait for their actual stats guy to show up to try to justify their preconceived notion with a stat of his own. It's just really funny to watch them operate. I would love to sit down and talk to them because I feel like that dynamic would be much different if they had to answer whatever I had to say directly instead of having each other's back in the way they do. They work like a cult. It's pretty funny. Alec Martinez, a big blast, ends up behind the net. Colton Dach battling behind the net, falls, trips on the net itself. Lukas Reichel in a board battle wins the puck, but Dach is unable to get it. And I believe that's going to clear the zone as I take another sip of my cherry cola. That's really interesting. This is the first time I'm trying this flavor of Celsius. I really like trying new flavors of things. And Celsius is something that I drink a lot. Again, if you're under 18, don't drink energy drinks. You guys have to understand, I'm on a very weird schedule. You guys understand that, right? I'm on a very busy schedule. I often have to wake up at like 3 or 4 a.m. just to get to work on time. And I'm dismissed whenever the heck the senior resident wants to dismiss me. Sometimes it's 4 or 5 p.m. I'm just on a very weird schedule. And I wouldn't be able to operate without energy drinks and without a lot of caffeine. I don't endorse drinking this much caffeine. But anyways, I drink a lot of Celsius, and I tried all of their new flavors. It's very rare to find a flavor that I've never tried. And this cherry cola flavor is pretty interesting. It's a little watery, but it's pretty good. I'll stop yapping and look at chat. No point in arguing with stupid/opinionated people. I don't mind opinions. I love opinions. In fact, I really debated whether or not to respond to Barstool Chief. And for the first 4 or 5 days, I intentionally never brought it up publicly because he's a very opinionated person. And frankly, I don't agree with a lot of his takes, but he's a very passionate fan and he's very reasonable. He can sit down in his spaces on Twitter and explain his take. For as stupid as it may be, he'll explain it and it'll mostly be based on film. And I will always respect somebody who can sit down and justify whatever take they have as the Blackhawks take their timeout with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left after a pretty poor power play. But this is about their chance. This is their biggest chance to win this game. But anyways, the reason why I never criticized that publicly until this previous video is because I have respect for whatever eccentric take you may have. If you think Connor Bedard is a bust, just sit down and justify it, and I'll at least give you the privilege of listening to you. Even if I disagree, I'll bring up some facts of why I disagree, but I respect it. The reason why I don't really like the rink people, and I don't want to cause beef online or anything, this is between me and you. They're 15 of my closest community members in this live stream right now. I have faith that you guys are not going to take this out of context. The reason why I don't like the rink guys is because a lot of times they don't have takes like that. They have takes that are based on their own perception of players. They hated Lukas Reichel 2 years ago. They hated Lukas Reichel from the offseason after he played in 2022, where he was the best player. They hated him from then, and they were looking and relishing in every minute of struggle that Lukas Reichel had last season. And when he was starting to figure things out on the fourth line, they still relished in the opportunity to criticize everything that he did. I just don't like people like that. I don't like debating with them. I don't like arguing with them. I mean, let me take that back. I would love to debate with them because I think it would expose a lot of their preconceived notions. I just don't like engaging with them. And the only reason I used to engage with them earlier on in my content creation journey is because I had some self-esteem issues, to be transparent. And I am doing much better with that now. I learned to ignore a lot of haters online. I get a lot of comments, especially on YouTube. Since I started uploading to YouTube, there are a lot of weird people on YouTube, man. A lot of weird comments that I get. A lot of them are hidden. But again, I told you, I have my YouTube studio open constantly. Absolutely constantly. I look at every subscription and I get happy. Every comment I read and I reread and I read 3 times. I'm just very connected to my YouTube audience. And that's why I like live streams and things like this that are more casual and reward you guys for subscribing to the YouTube channel. I really like things like that. But I get a lot of weird comments on YouTube, a lot of rink style comments on YouTube that I don't get on Twitter. And the sheer number of those comments have really desensitized me and really disconnected my self-esteem to the comments I get online, which is a very good thing. So I'm very thankful for that as well. The Hockey Sun says, I bet they loved Alex Nylander. That is not a name I expected to see today. That guy wasn't good, but he was the Hawks, but he was the Hawks scapegoat for his entire tenure. The poor man, Seth Jones, if you would. My goodness, he's a lot worse than Seth Jones. I understand your point, though, and I do agree with it. Second City Sports says, we all don't like TJ Brodie, but if he decided to start playing Norris level hockey, my opinion would change. That is spot on. I respect anybody who's capable of understanding other people's perspectives. If somebody came in right now and explained to me that they believe TJ Brodie is elite, I wouldn't I wouldn't agree with them, obviously, but I would have the humility to at least hear them out. And if there was a metric that I truly believed in that showed that TJ Brodie's doing better than a lot of people think he is, I would even consider modifying my opinion slightly as the Blackhawks pull their goalie. I have a problem with people who are so set in their opinions that are years old that they're unable to accept that players change. Hockey is a very dynamic sport. Seth Jones gets it over to Teuvo Teravainen. Back to Seth Jones, who gets it on net and a great save. I don't know if Tyler Bertuzzi got a stick on that, but he was all over Gustafsson, and that was a good save. I believe TJ Brodie is elite. My TED Talk. The Hockey Sun, you better be careful because I'm about to give you the mic and let you take over this live stream to convince all of us that TJ Brodie is elite. And you don't want to do that. It's sad because TJ Brodie was actually such a good defenseman 2 seasons ago. I don't know what happened to him. As the Minnesota Wild, Marcus Foligno, baby Foligno scores to put this game out of reach, to increase the tank for the Blackhawks. It was a nice little effort. I'm happy Connor Bedard had a brilliant primary assist to get this comeback going. Frank Nazar with an amazing play on the goal. I cannot stop raving about Frank Nazar. He's been phenomenal over the past 4 games. He had a goal, but this game is out of reach. And the better team won. The Minnesota Wild, of these 2 teams, their fans probably want them to win the game more than the Blackhawks do. And look, I don't like talking like this because I'm not the kind of fan who likes rooting for losses. But the Blackhawks are in pretty big trouble if they fall beyond second worst. Because if lottery luck doesn't go their way, and they're not able to get one of the top 3 forwards in this draft, they're gonna have some tough conversations. You could say what you want about Porter Martone and the fact that he's slightly old for this draft class, and the fact that even so he's only on pace to score 38 goals despite having a very good start, and the fact that he was mostly invisible in the World Juniors as one of the only young, exciting prospects that Canada actually chose to bring in, and the fact that maybe he's not as good of a prospect as James Higgins or Michael Misa is. You could say whatever you want, but the gap between Porter Martone and Victor Eklund, for example, or Anton Frendel, or your choice of 5th overall pick is massive. Porter Martone would be a really exciting first-line player. I think anybody else is realistically a middle 6 player, and the Blackhawks already have enough middle 6 players. They need that superstar. I think they would be in trouble if they lost if they won too many games right now, because they run a risk of catching up to third worst. And for those of you who don't know how the lottery works, you can finish up to 2 spots better in the draft than you finished in the standings. So if you finish 31st, you can pick anywhere between 29th and 32nd. You could move up to 2 spots up. As the Blackhawks pull the goalie again, almost a spectacular tip by Reichel behind his back, but it hit Colton Dach, who got it on net. And now Middleton will get the puck out of the zone and just clear it. That may be going down for icing. Yes, it indeed does. Alex says we got better trade value for Jones right now, at least. That's actually true. I think Jones deserves a chance to go to a different team. I think this rebuild is just too long for him. And look, we can have the Jones conversation. We talked at the beginning of the stream about how Jones was one of those players who was scapegoated because of how bad he was when he came back from injury. Realistically, he had every opportunity, every excuse to be bad. He was coming back from a foot injury, and as a right-handed defenseman who is known for his mobility, as the Wild are about to score again onto an empty net. Never mind, they missed the net. Oh my goodness, they should have scored there. But Seth Jones has always been a player who was a bit of a mobility merchant. As the final whistle goes and the Blackhawks fall 4-2. But anyway, Seth Jones was always a mobility merchant, and a player like that recovering from a foot injury is always more complicated. So it didn't surprise me to see him struggle a little bit when he came back. Add to that the fact that he was learning a brand new scheme on the fly. I understood why Seth Jones struggled. But again, it's the same subset of fans, and it's not just the guys from the rink, but it's a lot of guys who fell into the trap as well. A lot of guys whose opinions I respect, who fell into the same trap of saying, see, look, Seth Jones is getting paid $9.5 million. Get him off the team at any cost, when he's just having a normal moment of struggling coming back from an injury. If you look at his play over the past 4 games, 5 games, 6 games, he has seven points in his past 6 games. He's playing very well again, and he's been arguably the best defenseman in that time frame. And once again, he had a goal today. Just because he had 10 games of struggling when he first came back does not mean that he is a bad defenseman. Of course, he's overpaid. Everybody knows that. And of course, he's not the best power play quarterback in the NHL. In fact, I don't think he should be a power play quarterback even on the Blackhawks. And yes, the Chiefs are going to win this game. They're up 32-29. You know what? I learned something from the Tom Brady era, and that is I'm tired of rooting against greatness. I spent his entire New England Patriot career rooting against that dude. Patrick Mahomes made it to the AFC Championship game. And by the way, the AFC is loaded compared to the NFC throughout Patrick Mahomes' entire career. You have Joe Burrow there. You have Josh Allen there. You have Lamar Jackson there. You have way more elite quarterback play in the AFC than you do in the NFC. And despite that, he's made it to the AFC Championship game in every single season that he's been a starter. That is ridiculous. And the fact that he's going to do that all over again, he's going to make it to the Super Bowl this season, is just ridiculous. I hate that he gets favoritism. I do believe that Andy Reid has a lot to do with his success, but all of that is just hater talk. I think we all need to just tip our cap for an absolute great player, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play this game. And I think there's a part of us that all miss Tom Brady. And that same part of us is going to miss Patrick Mahomes if we continue to hate for his entire career. I'll be transparent. I wanted the Bills to win. I think Josh Allen is he's one of my favorite non-Bears players. And he played well today. He had 2 touchdowns. James Cook had 2 rushing touchdowns of his own, but sometimes you just run into a brick wall. And Patrick Mahomes having arguably, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, arguably his worst season as a starter. And he didn't do anything spectacular. He had 17 completed passes today. 229 yards is not bad. 1 touchdown. He didn't do anything spectacular. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, though. And that's kind of the difference in this game. Having just a mediocre season, being carried by Spagnuolo is just a spectacular defensive coordinator. And it sucks that he's probably going to be handcuffed to Patrick Mahomes for the significant foreseeable future, because Patrick Mahomes has Andy Reid, and Andy Reid is a head coach that any coordinator will want to work with, and because Spagnuolo is objectively a terrible head coach, so nobody's going to give him that chance. That is just a cheat code, and being able to have Andy Reid and Spagnuolo taking care of the offense and the defense is just such a luxury for a quarterback. And yeah, it is what it is. Patrick Mahomes, once again, is going to make it to the Super Bowl. He's 17-2 this season. You can't really hate on that. He plays safe now. And that's a funny thing, Logs. He plays safe now. And if you remember, before he showed up, Andy Reid was still around. And Andy Reid, who was a quarterback that Andy Reid had to work with before Patrick Mahomes came along? It was Alex Smith. And if you remember, in the season before Mahomes became a full-time starter, Alex Smith was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in that boring NFL safe game management type way. He was so good in that season. So Patrick Mahomes can always go back to playing this game management role because now he has a great defense and he has a solid team around him. It looks like Kareem Hunt has come back from the dead to be an effective running back on this team again. He has a 4 yards per carry average in this game. He's able to be effective on the ground as well. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Xavier Worthy has come out of his slump to be an effective playoff performer. He has 6 receptions and 85 yards and a touchdown in this game. And keep in mind, once you lose out on Tyreek Hill, we'll see if Tyreek Hill comes back to join Mahomes. Tyreek Hill has already made it very public that he does not want to be in Miami, the little diva that he is. So we'll see where he ends up going. But once you lost Tyreek Hill, and keep in mind that Travis Kelce is a shell of what he's been over the past several seasons. An absolute shell. He only has 2 receptions this game, but throughout the season, he has not been good. So when all of his weapons have been either inconsistent in Travis Kelce's case or straight up bad in Hollywood Brown, who's been injured almost all season, Juju Smith-Schuster, who's not really a great wide receiver right now, he's bounced between teams, and Xavier Worthy, who's just young and inexperienced and still learning how to play the position, all of a sudden, you maybe have to start leaning on your defense a little bit more. And that's exactly what Andy Reid did. It's a sign of a great head coach. Understand your deficiencies and coach around it. And for as good as Patrick Mahomes is, he's already shown in previous seasons that he can take over games when needed. And that's the ultimate luxury from a game-managing quarterback. And Patrick Mahomes has been a game-managing quarterback this season, but you just know if you need a Superman moment out of him, he's going to pull through. The game is over. They got a first down. It's going to finish. And the Kansas City Chiefs are going to make it to the Super Bowl. It is what it is. Chiefs versus Eagles. My prediction is the Chiefs are going to win. Saquon Barkley, the Eagles are going to go as far as Saquon Barkley takes them. I'm going to be very honest with you. I think Jalen Hurts is a very overrated quarterback. I understand he had a good game today, but Saquon Barkley is the heart and soul of that team and one of the most impactful free agency signings that we've ever seen. And by the way, it's coming in the same offseason that the Ravens got Derrick Henry, who was, again, a completely transformative player for the Ravens. Unfortunately, Lamar wasn't able to pull it off against Josh Allen. And Lamar wasn't able to pull it off in the playoffs, I should say. And that wasn't able to really come into fruition. But Saquon Barkley is the heart and soul of the Eagles. 15 carries, 118 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. 3 rushing touchdowns. 2023, I would argue even before that, this is rookie Saquon Barkley. If you remember how explosive he was as a rookie, this is even better than that. This team is only going to go as far as Saquon Barkley takes him. And Second City brings up a really interesting point. Jalen is very much a system quarterback. The thing is, he's not even really a system quarterback because, number one, the system is mediocre. The reason why he's so good in the system is because he's big and because he's able to get the ball over to his very talented receivers. He's not really a system quarterback. The one way where he is a system quarterback is the tush push, because any short yardage situation, he's able to pull it off. But this season specifically, his accuracy has taken a huge hit because you're starting to see the system get exposed a little bit. This team is only as good as Saquon Barkley takes them. So it's going to be Saquon Barkley against the Chiefs. And my goodness, Spagnuolo is going to have a field day, because when you have one strength, this is kind of the Bill Belichick effect. Bill Belichick was the absolute master of looking at what the opposing team did well and taking that one player away. He had the viral moment with, I don't remember who the receiver was. Maybe it was Chad Ochocinco. I don't remember who it was. Where he met him pregame and he said, look, we're going to cover you with 2 or 3 guys all game because they're going to try to get you the ball and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. And it's kind of the same effect with any elite defensive coordinator in the Super Bowl, where they understand what your strengths are and they're going to do everything to take it away. And the Chiefs have the personnel to stack the box and to really try taking away Saquon Barkley. I'm not going to say that they're going to succeed in doing so, because nobody can really shut out Saquon Barkley, but they're going to do everything they can to make Jalen Hurts beat them in the air. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it. My prediction is the Chiefs win. Wait, who is performing in the Super Bowl? I actually completely missed that. The Hockey Sun says, isn't that the year the Hawks won the draft lottery? You're talking about 2023? As in 2023, Saquon Barkley is back? Oh, Kendrick Lamar. Oh, my God. It's moments like this that I'm so thankful I'm not just a plain React channel. I would lose so many brain cells if I had to react to the Kendrick-Drake beef. I know I'm going to have to react and do some more casual content just to keep the account going and just to keep the community engaged. But my goodness, I can't believe they gave Kendrick Lamar the Super Bowl. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of insane. I mean, the only reason he's relevant, and not to, again, I'm being a hypocrite. I'm being completely hypocritical. I just said I'm happy I didn't react to it, and now I'm reacting to it. But the only reason he's relevant right now is because of his beef with Drake. He's going to be repeating that same stupid diss song all Super Bowl. I don't know why they chose him. You're sleeping at half. It's going to be a nice half an hour break for you, Alex. A nice half an hour nap. It's going to be a good Super Bowl, though. I remember the Rams versus Patriots Super Bowl, the 6-3 finish. And at that moment, I just realized that no matter what, I'm going to be thankful if a Super Bowl is exciting. And these are two exciting teams. Even if I think one team is a lot more talented than the other, and one team is more well-coached than the other, and one team is more likely to win than the other, I really do believe that this is going to be an exciting Super Bowl, and I'm going to be thankful for it. Yes, Kendrick Lamar smacked him. Again, I'm not going to stoop deep enough to actually talk through the drama and the back and forth. Even SpongeBob couldn't save it. Here's what I'll say. I don't care that Kendrick Lamar beat Drake in some stupid online feud. I hate to be rash like that, but I don't care. That's not a reason to give somebody a Super Bowl. I mean, I'd rather see Taylor Swift in the freaking Super Bowl. I mean, she's attached to the hip to the NFL anyways. You might as well go all the way. I'm saying that in a tongue-in-cheek way, but the reason to give somebody a halftime show is not because they beat Drake in some stupid beef halfway through the season. It's just a little bit absurd to me. All right, boys. Thank you so much for joining me. I apologize that I wasn't able to react to the highlights. I do have to go because I have to show up at 4 a.m. to the hospital tomorrow, which means I have to leave my house at 3 a.m., which means I have to wake up at like 2:30 a.m. Ringside Swiftie. Oh, heck no. I am not a Swiftie. I said that in a tongue-in-cheek way, man. I'm not a huge fan of halftime shows to begin with. I'm not that type of consumer. I'm more a nerd about the sport itself, both hockey and football and soccer and all the other sports. So, but in any case, I'm going to have to conclude because I do have to wake up at around 2:30 tomorrow morning. It's going to be an early day. I'm also starving. I was pretty stressed about having this stream. So I barely ate today, and I was trying to figure out how to have overlays in OBS. I had to download stuff, and I had to work to make this little overlay on the bottom right and to have a live sub counter and things like that. So I barely ate. I'm going to have to eat and then sleep. I appreciate all the well wishes logs. I appreciate everybody showing up. We maintain close to 10 concurrent viewers, despite this being a last minute shift, despite me being supremely unprofessional and saying Buttman instead of Batman, and despite being showing the Karachi bomber over and over and over again in the first intermission, and all the other things that happened. It was a great experience for me. I hope at least a fraction of that fun was able to get through to get through to you guys. I hope you guys had fun. We're going to be doing this more. I really enjoy this kind of laid back, unscripted side where I can interact with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it too. Please consider subscribing, but more importantly, thank you guys so much for being a part of my Sunday evening. It was a pleasure. It was way smoother than I could have possibly expected. Thank you, Buttman. Thank you, Logs. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, the Hockey Sun. Thank you. I can't name all of you by name. Thank you to my anonymous graphic designer who's still lurking in the chat, one of the 9 concurrent viewers. You guys can probably figure out who that is. Thank you, Second City Sports. Thank you to everybody who's a part of the community, people who were able to watch this stream, people who were too busy with the Bills game to watch this stream, people who had better things to do, more of a life on this Sunday evening. Thank you guys so much for being a part of my Sunday evening, and thank you for engaging. Thank you for making the stream exciting for me, and thank you so much for being a part of my early growth. You guys mean more to me than you will ever know. Thank you so much once again, and I will see you guys in the next stream and in the next video. Please consider subscribing so you don't miss any future content, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Good night.